Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another exciting and definitely not fascistic podcast episode of Analytical Fanboys. I am Simeon the Vacuuminator Scott, and I am joined, as always, by the giant-sized Chris Gaston.
Remember, always bash the fash.
Yes, that is the word. It's not bird, it's bash. So today we're talking about your favorite Ghibli movie, because we did my favorite Ghibli movie quite a while ago. And it's very interesting, I think, that this is your favorite, because it's got a lot of things that I think are very much you, especially in the fact that this is probably one of the least discussed Ghibli movies. It's kind of the dark horse of the Hayao Miyazaki directed ones, but it is Porco Rosso. So why don't you talk a bit about it?
Porco Rosso is the story of a man who looks like a pig at this point in time. There's magic and metaphor all wrapped up into that. And he is an outlaw bounty hunter in an archipelago the south of Italy during the rise of fascism in Italy right before World War II. And he is traipsing around this archipelago fighting off pirates. And the pirates basically go like, we're tired of this, so they hire a hotshot pilot from America. And classic action adventure stuff kind of happens.
Yeah, that's kind of it's a very classic movie. It feels very of the period it's set in, but it has a lot of modern elements to it, and the animation help it all along a lot to be a lot more accessible to a modern audience. I kind of equate this to something like Captain America: The First Avenger, where it's very much a movie set in a time that would be made in that time, but it's modern feeling enough that as a modern audience member, you can really get into it.
Oh yeah, it's more of a throwback and less of a let's do it again.
Yeah.
They really like to take because I didn't mention it, but he's a pilot, but he pilots a kind of plane that has a very specific time period feeling to it, and they're water planes.
Seaplanes, as they call them in the movie. Propeller driven, but with modern gas engines, and they've got this very rustic, homemade feel. I mean, a major part of the movie is just them constructing a new plane for him. And it's all about just these things. Even though it's an animated movie, these planes feel very real, very alive. Like
it's the romance of being a pilot.
Yeah, and it's very fun because Miyazaki and John Lasseter get compared to each other a whole lot, or at least they did before Lasseter got Me Too'd. But I think one of the most obvious correlations you can find between them is they both have this mechanical interest that they really, really get into. With Lasseter, it's trains. With Miyazaki, it's planes. This guy, he has multiple movies about planes at this, not in the point this movie came out. This, I think, was the first one. But in this point in our actual history, he's got like 2 or 3 movies about planes now.
And several more just about flying.
Yeah, and every movie he does about planes, he puts so much detail into it. Like, he always puts a lot of detail into his movies, but in this movie, it feels like the focus is very heavily on the planes themselves. Like, there's a lot of scenes where I was like, wow, for a Miyazaki movie, the animation's not that impressive. And that's because it was just scenes of characters talking to each other. Whenever you're doing stuff with planes in this movie, the whole thing just comes alive.
Like the first dogfight.
Yeah.
Where we enter the movie in media res, where a group of seaplane pirates, like 5 or 6 in one plane, are swooping down, and they're mugging basically kind of a luxury cruiser. And in order to get away efficiently, they kidnap 12 schoolgirls. And it's the most adorable thing because it's not like
the girls aren't scared at all. They're having fun with it.
Yeah, and the pirates are being gentlemen about it. They're pirates. They're gonna steal and pillage, but no, these are our hostage. We're gonna take care of them. We're gonna treat them with respect.
Mm-hmm. They're being more, I would say they're kind of along the lines of Saturday cartoon bumbling goons where, yeah, we're evil, but we're not evil.
Right.
Like I'm watching that part of the movie right now on my other monitor, and there's this whole sequence where you just see inside their plane and the little girls are all climbing around and getting on stuff, and they're like, don't touch that, don't get in that, and don't no, this isn't a field trip, just it's like it's very much like they're dads who are just getting used to having kids rather than, and they're these evil men sticking guns at little girls and being like, don't fucking move or I'll kill you.
Yeah, like even two of the little girls crawl up into the area where the gunner is, and they go, "Can we stick out here so we can see?" And he's like, "Yeah, just try and keep your heads clear."
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like there. It feels very much of like it feels wholesome in a weird way.
Yeah,
like even the bad guys are good.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's very much there's a code of honor going on. This is back in that very romanticized adventure sort of period where, yeah, there were people doing evil, illegal shit, but they had their morals about them.
Yeah, and that really is a nice contrast to the backdrop of fascism in Italy that the story has going on.
Yeah, this is set in a time where it was Italy was sort of converting to fascism, if I believe so. And so stuff like the way Porco earns money is sort of becoming outlawed and outmoded. And this is sort of like his last big hurrah before it would be too dangerous for him to even go out and do this stuff.
Yeah, because as we learned in the movie, he's basically an AWOL Italian Air Force pilot.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's not a fascist. He fucking hated what was going on, and he says, like, fuck you, I'm bouncing.
Yeah, and there's a moment where he goes to another part of Italy. I believe it's something with an M. It's like Mulatto or something like that. Milan. And to get his plane fixed. And there's a scene where he's hanging out in a movie theater while his plane's being fixed, and Tom fucking Cruise, because that's what that character looked like to me, Tom Cruise comes in and is like, hey, we're old war buddies. I figured I'd let you know. They know you're here and they're coming to get you. And he's like, yeah, I know. You gonna run away, or are you gonna let them catch you and join back up? And he's like, fuck you. I'd rather die than become a fascist or something like that. And it's like,
I'd rather be a pig than a fascist.
Yeah, and it's like, that is probably the most Fedora core, cringy, I'm trying to be cool thing I've ever heard. But the way he says it and the context of this movie makes it actually cool. It makes me just sit there like a little kid and go, wow, Porco Rosso, you're really cool. I'd rather die too.
But like, because him being a pig is a curse in the movie. It's not like just an aesthetic thing. It's like, no, he looks like a pig. That's the point. No one ever mentions like it being weird. It's just like, oh, you're Porco Rosso, you look like a pig. Yeah, for some reason.
He's that pig fucker who be about the islands.
But to me, it felt very much like they never reveal how he got that way, because he didn't always look this way. And it's said several times, but to me, it was implied that right when the fascism was starting to take hold in Italy, he was still a pilot and he was still going about, and he let one of his friends die. And he blames himself for that and considers himself like a coward for just coattailing and basically, I was only following orders, kind of that mentality. So he says like, nope, screw it, and bounced and became a pig.
See, I read that scene as he was the only survivor of that battle because of some kind of vague cowardly shit. And because of that, he was turned into a pig by God.
I mean, again, they never directly say, so both of us are right.
Yeah, there is a flashback sequence, but it's very vague and kind of open to interpretation, which I think is fine because, like I said, this film is going for a very classical sort of action adventure feel to it. Though I'm looking at it on Wikipedia, and the way this film is actually designated, it is a fantasy/magical realism film.
Oh yeah, magical realism is definitely kind of part of it. Which magical realism is a storytelling technique where it's based in a core of reality and realism, and like everything functionally, like everything is real. But there also just happens to be like a ghost in the attic that everybody just acknowledges is there. Like there's a tiny kernel of magic in the world. It's really common in like Mexican literature, and Hispanic literature, Spain too. Like that whole little pocket of creation, it really deals with it. And a lot of, in a way, you can also consider like a lot of Japanese storytelling in a similar vein. So yeah.
You know what? Easy comparison that I think a lot of modern anime fans will probably understand. Death Note is kind of a magical realism thing.
Yeah, it's a very realistic thing, and there's like a kernel of magic. There's also like little things like there's a slice of life manga that finished a while ago that I read while it was coming out. I can't remember the name of it, but basically it was a pretty typical slice of life show series, but the main female character, who was an elementary school girl, just had a pair of horns. Why? Because it's fun. It's cute.
It's a design aesthetic that differentiates this girl from other cute girls, and therefore we can sell merch of her more easily.
Yeah. I don't think it ever got to the point of merch, that series, but it was a good series. It was cute. But back to Porco Rosso, I just really want to mention like this whole aesthetic, mid 30s in archipelago of islands with seaplanes and all of this kind of stuff. It's just like such a pure aesthetic of storytelling that I'm surprised only 2 things have really dealt with it.
What's the other one?
Tailspin.
Okay, see, I was gonna also put in the Wind Waker there, because that's a thing that's very much about going in between a lot of small islands.
But it's like it's the aspect of like that, the pilot romance of planes and dogfighting that elevates this whole little thing, and it's like it's so viscerally weird and me.
Yeah, it's interesting because this is definitely a major part of World War II history, but because it's so far removed from the American image of World War II, which is we got attacked and then we went and fucked everybody's shit up for a couple of years. It's not really something that, at least in media that makes it over to the West, you see brought up a whole bunch. But I think that kind of elevates this, and possibly Tailspin. I can't say for sure because I've never seen any Tailspin. I'm just one of those people who kind of missed the 90s Disney animation boat, except for Goof Troop. I saw reruns of Goof Troop when I was a kid.
Not even Darkwing, bro?
Nope.
Man, you're breaking my heart. Mighty Ducks?
Nope.
No Gargoyles.
I saw a bit of Gargoyles when they reran it on Disney XD in the early 2010s.
Damn. Like, damn. Tailspin's great, though.
Yeah.
But, like, there's just there's something weird and poetic about a seaplane. A thing we built that can't do the one thing we get, like, it completes the human being in a way that we can now go land, water, and air.
Yeah.
Like in a weird way. There's something nice and romantic about it.
It makes us kind of masters of all elements. We all get to be the Avatar for a little bit.
Yeah, because there's an explosion going on behind you too, because
yeah.
But this is my favorite Ghibli film. Like, my second favorite Miyazaki film is Castle of Cagliostro. I'm one of those guys.
Interesting. Because I think the Lupin one technically isn't a Ghibli film, but it's one that gets lumped in there a whole lot because it was directed by Miyazaki and it was kind of his first major work, and it's a similar style, and therefore, along with a few other Ghibli films, it's on Netflix right now, and I really should finally get around to watching it before they take it off.
Castle of Cagliostro is probably the easiest way to get into Lupin the Third. And yeah, this was Miyazaki's first directorial on a film, directorial role on a film. But he had done animation for Lupin the Third through a lot of its second run, which I think is Green Jacket. You can tell the run of Lupin the Third by the color of his jacket.
Yeah, I know that's a thing, but I have no idea like any of the specifics in there. But getting back to this film a lot, I think the main thing I kind of want to discuss here is how I honestly think this is the best portrayal of period sexism I've ever seen on film.
You know what? Yeah, because you think of everybody being completely an asshole back then, but it's like, no, they have some of those attitudes, but if they get proven wrong, they're proven wrong, and they'll go like, fuck it.
Yeah, in modern films, we have this tendency to, if we're going to do a period film that's about sexism or racism, or if it has sexism and racism in it, it has to be about that. And it has to make all the people who are sexist and racist completely evil, heartless pieces of shit. And I do not disagree that there probably were people like that. But I also think it was probably way more common that there were people like Porco, who in this movie gets his plane fucked up. So he takes his plane to the guy who normally repairs it. And he goes, "We're going to have to build you a whole new plane, basically. That's fine. I got money. Also, all my sons are off looking for work elsewhere. So my granddaughter is going to design the plane, and all of my female relatives are going to build it." And he's like, "What the fuck? They're women." And she's like 12. I'm 17. You're still a little girl. Okay, let me drop some plans and see if you think otherwise. He sees the plans and he goes, "Those are some good-ass plans. Okay, just don't stay up late again. I don't want you to have shitty complexion."
Yeah, and that's still kind of a sexist attitude. At the end, it's like, you still got to be a girl, but like, he sees the talent and respects it.
Yeah, and it's not like a whole film about, "You're a girl, you can't design planes. I'll prove you wrong." And then an hour and a half of that. He proves her wrong in like 10 minutes, and he's like, "Okay, fine. I still see you as a girl, but you're a girl who can design planes. I guess that's a thing."
Yeah, it's very much like Porco Rosso does not give a fuck.
Yeah, he's definitely a nihilist, I'd say. He's like a guy who used to be a big idealist, and then he realized that idealism doesn't get you everywhere, so he went in the complete opposite direction the whole way. And this movie is kind of about him finding balance, I think.
Yeah, finding that hope again, realizing that, you know what, he can be loved, and he can love in return.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a major little subplot throughout the whole movie. We see this owner of a restaurant bar inn kind of thing, and she's like the singer for it. She sings every night for the crowd, and they all love her. And she's childhood friends with Porco. And it's shown throughout the movie that basically she married a couple pilots beforehand, but they were killed in wars and just a bunch of dumb stuff. And the only person she's willing to open her heart up to is revealed to be Porco.
Yeah, and by the end of and he doesn't realize that. He's so along the path of nihilism where he just can't even realize that in her own way, this woman is kind of throwing herself at him. But because essentially his rival for the movie basically says, "Hey, stop trying to get on my shit. I want to fuck this girl." He's like, "What do you mean?" "Well, she said she loves you and that she's waiting for you." And he's like, "What are you talking about? She wouldn't love me.
I'm a pig.
She's crazy about you, dumbass." And he's like, "Oh shit, I guess she is." And then he just goes and gets with her at the end of the movie.
Also, the pilot girl shows him that no, people can just care about him, regardless. Like, it doesn't even matter that, because he thinks she's still hanging around him because they're childhood friends, and he's her ex-husbands, her dead husbands, and he's going like, "Oh no, we're just a bunch of old friends trying to keep each other at least company." And then the little girl comes in and goes like, "Hey, no, I care about you, Porco. You're just Porco."
Yeah, she sticks up for him in front of the pirates and basically arranges things in a way that he can save his own ass.
Yeah, because the hotshot American is, of course, an asshole American.
I by the way, I love the hotshot American character wholeheartedly. He is like the perfect old school villain character where like he's so cocky and so full of himself that like he has plans to become a famous actor and the president and he's a hotshot pilot. And I love that when he goes up to try and like win Gina's heart by trespassing in her fucking garden, he says this like really flowery line of poetry, and then he immediately follows it up with him saying, "That's my favorite line from a screenplay I wrote." It's like, you piece of shit.
Oh, he's a lovable piece of shit.
And his outfit features a belt with his initial on it. There's a big C for Curtis, which is his name, and a Italian flag, which I'm guessing he only wore there because when he's introduced, one of the pirates is introducing him and being like, "I got this guy who can take out Porco." And all the other pirates are like, "Oh, fuck this guy. We don't need some American to come in and help us." And he's like, "It's okay. My mom's cousin was Italian, so I'm good." And I'm like, that is the most asshole American line ever. I love it.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, he's not like a dick about it. Like, when he knows he lost, he's not like, "Fuck you." And when he realizes, oh, she's not going to ever return my affections, he drops it. He's like, "Okay, cool."
And then he immediately goes and tries to get a 17-year-old to marry him.
I will say this, yeah, creepy, but time-wise, it's appropriate.
Yeah. And it's not like Porco didn't obviously have interest in her either. It's just he was so in his fuck everything mind that he didn't act on it at all.
Yeah. And it immediately grew into an older brother, younger sister kind of dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
But
by the way, we haven't discussed this yet. Did you watch dub or sub?
I watched dub because I think Ghibli films are really good dubbed.
Now, I watched this dub initially because Ghibli films are like the one anime thing where I can always trust the dub is going to be good. But I did watch both dub and sub because we ended up having the time thanks to some delays. I gotta say, I like the dub a good bit better. I've heard some people saying like, "Oh, it's not as good because like the bumbling sea pirates in the beginning, they don't make silly voices to make it clear that they're bumbling idiots." And I'm like, I think that makes the joke better, that the voice actors are taking it totally serious, but it's a goofy situation. I think that's great. And also, Porco's played by Michael frickin' Keaton.
Yeah, beautiful, brilliant casting.
And because we keep talking about her but not saying her name, plane designer girl whose name is Theo, she's voiced by the daughter from Father of the Bride, which was one of my favorite movies growing up. So I was so floored to see her in something again.
Yeah, like Disney, because Disney dubs the Ghibli films. So it's Disney money.
Yeah, so they'll hire actual fucking Hollywood casting directors and get actual people, and because of that, you always get a featurette on the DVD with these. That's these Hollywood actors just going like, voice acting is so cool and unique, and it's such a great job. You just go to this booth, you don't have to get dressed up all fancy or spend 10 hours in makeup. You just go to a booth for an afternoon and say all your lines and you're done. And it's like, yeah, Michael Keaton, that's how that works. I'm glad you know that now.
But like, because it's also a Disney production still, you get some classic voice actor guys like Jim Cummings.
Yeah. I think he's a couple people in this. I know I recognized, I want to say the voice of Kronk is one of the Goofy Sea pilots in the beginning. And then also Raymond's brother from Everybody Loves Raymond is one of them.
Like, all the Sea Pirates are brilliant. And they have, like, all their planes are beautifully designed. They're just sleek and elegant. Oh, man. But essentially, the Sea Pirates are wanting to get rid of Porco so they can do their shit. Porco wants to get rid of the pirates because, hey, that's his job. But eventually we are shown that we're told that the pirates are now kind of legit, that the Italian government's now kind of endorsed them. Now they're privateers of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the last one for Porco the Bounty Hunter. And they turn it into this giant dogfight duel, and everybody shows up to watch. And
it becomes more of like an honor-bound gentleman's duel spectacle.
Yeah, and like the pirates are taking in bets and everything, and they're going like, "Wait a second, this is much more profitable. Why don't we just do this every month?"
Yeah. And I love how, like, the one pirate guy who was the captain of the Bumblers in the beginning is, like, all dressed up, and he's trying to make it, like, a big official feeling event. Like, he's running it like a WWE event. He's like, and now we're going to put the bets in the center. Everybody put 2 challengers. Your bets need to sit on these chairs. And he, like, pulls the chair out for Theo, all gentlemanly, like, it's great.
Yeah. And then one of the pirates is just like trying to bring it up the money, and he's like waiting for him to pull the chair out for the money, and he's like, just put the fucking money down.
Yeah. And then the fight itself is so great because there's never actually a moment where one of them gets shot. They keep trying to pull around each other and do all this fancy stuff, and they end up just wasting all of their ammo and having to land and then have a boxing match in the water. This goofy, like, old-timey fisticuffs boxing match, which is so great.
And it's just so good. And all the while, there's a ticking clock because the restaurant woman is told by the dude, the Tom Cruise guy, who told, hey, the fascist government know you're here, Porco. You better scoot out of town. He basically warns and says, like, hey, they know where Porco is. They know where the pirates are. They're coming.
They're going to kill everyone.
And so
you're expecting there to be this big spectacle final fight of Porco and all the pirates taking on the Italian army. And I love that they subverted it and we don't get that. It's just Gina shows up right after Porco wins, tells everybody what's going on, everybody skedaddles, and then we get a voiceover epilogue of Theo telling us sort of what happened after that. And that's it. That's how the movie ends. It's really nice where there's not this need for like this huge double climax like we have with almost every movie that comes out now.
Because we had the emotional climax, and that was the whole point. It was Porco coming to terms with himself and going like, you know what, fuck it, I deserve to live.
Mm-hmm.
And he got that way by just proving himself that, you know what, I'm worth it, by beating Curtis, by just proving that he can fight for someone else, and Theo. And basically, I hate saying the hotel woman coming in and just Gina coming in and saying, hey, we need to save everybody. And he goes like, all right, cool. He sees that. And the best moment is we never see his face at the end, but we see Curtis look up at him and goes like, dude, your face, it's different. And it just like implies that he's no longer a pig. He's a man again.
Mm-hmm. And I love that it's never clearly said whether it's because of his self-realization or it's because of the fairy tale excuse that they kind of plant in our heads earlier of Theo gives him a kiss on the cheek as she's flying away in that scene, and that's the last time we see his face in the movie. So it could have been that. It could have been his self-realization. We don't know. It's a goofy fantasy movie. It doesn't matter. It's whatever you want it to be.
And like they never even directly say, "Oh, him and Gina got together." It's like, "Oh," and Theo at the end during her narration just goes like, "Oh, and Porco and Theo, Porco and Gina." Oh, that's a story for another time.
But yeah, 9 out of 10 for me.
Oh, 10 out of 10. Great movie.
Yeah. I think the only thing that like keeps it from being a 10 out of 10 for me is the fact that the animation isn't always as amazing as I expect from a Ghibli movie. But like I said, it's still really good, especially in those plane scenes. Like I was just looking at a bit of the ending dogfight there, and there's a close-up shot where Porco Rosso is signaling Curtis, and usually that would just be like a static shot with only his hand and the signal thing moving in a normal anime. But you can see like the panes of glass in his windshield jiggling and shit like that. So it's so good, the attention to detail.
Yeah. I think this is the only Ghibli film that I can say I'd be completely happy with having like a TV anime.
Yeah, this could be like a weekly series.
I can just see more adventures, Porco fighting the pirates. And that also is partially because I watched Tailspin growing up, so I know what a series like this can be, but I love these characters. And every other story is very beginning, middle, end that Ghibli does, but this definitely feels more the adventure continues.
Yeah, it's got that same kind of thing that I have with Kiki, where it's like, well, there's books that just continue showing Kiki growing up being a witch in that series. I'd like all those to be adapted too.
Yep.
Trying to think if there's anything else I want to talk about.
Character designs were great.
Yeah, a little detail Ghibli I noticed while skipping for the movie during our discussion just now. Do you know what the engine is called? The new engine he puts in his plane?
A Ghibli.
Yep. It says it right on there. It's so great.
Man, it's a beautiful, great movie, and it deserves to be mentioned more as one of the greats of the Ghibli canon.
Mm-hmm.
But it's always going to get overshadowed by Howl's Moving Castle, by Princess Mononoke, by Spirited Away.
I mean, it's a real testament to how good Ghibli's library is that a movie that's this fucking great isn't one of the ones that's brought up all the time. Like, there's movies that are even more highly appreciated than this.
This would be the feather in the cap of any other animation studio, except maybe Madhouse and Sunrise.
Hmm.
Like if this was a Dean production,
mm-hmm.
or JC staff or anything like that. Keep in mind,
because we talked about how we've talked about over the course of this podcast how Disney and Ghibli have that symbiotic relationship. In Disney's animated films catalog, a film of this comparative quality to the rest of their catalog would be The Black Cauldron. And let me tell you, Porco Rosso ain't no Black Cauldron. Porco Rosso's like 4 or 5 Black Cauldrons. It's that good.
Yeah.
And I like Black Cauldron.
And I wouldn't even say it's a Black Cauldron. I think it's well liked by the people who watch it, but it's not on the tip of people's tongue. Tip of people's tongues say more of like The Great Mouse Detective in the Disney Renaissance.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of part of that group. It was a big financial success. It's pretty well loved, but it's right before Little Mermaid. So
nobody remembers it.
Oh, yeah.
Come on, Disney. Where's my live-action Great Mouse Detective?
Oh, man.
Get Benedict Cumberbatch. You already have him under contract for Marvel shit.
Here's the thing. They could actually do something interesting with Great Mouse Detective of having 2 mysteries going on at the same time. One for Sherlock, one for Basil.
Yeah.
and they interconnect and they don't realize it. And like they both have to solve their mysteries to solve the greater mystery.
See, now that I brought up Benedict Cumberbatch and you said that, I really want them to just send the BBC a sack of money and then have the live action version of Great Mouse Detective be set in the Sherlock universe. Could you imagine that shit?
Yeah, but but Basil and Sherlock never interact.
Yeah. It's just like every once in a while you see Benedict Cumberbatch's legs.
Yeah. Oh, man. Hire us, Disney. We could be making much better movies than the live-action Lion King.
Yeah! But do we have anything else to say about Porco Rosso, or should we get on to what we've been up to this week?
It is a great Ghibli film. If you haven't watched it, watch it. Mm-hmm. It should be considered in the top 5. Top 3, even, in my opinion. But that's my opinion. It's
definitely one I'm going to make an effort to get a physical copy of at some point. I know there's models out there of Porco's plane, so I kind of want to pick that up. And, hey, in my opinion, it's got one of the cuter Ghibli girls. Fio's got a great, really simplistic design.
Oh, yeah. And she has a great personality in that terms, too. Also, you get one of the best Ghibli women.
Yeah, because Ghibli doesn't do women too often, and when they do them,
like the woman in Princess Mononoke, she's a badass and great and wonderful. Oh, man.
Great movie.
Great movie.
Glad we watched it.
The Red Pig.
But, Chris, I believe it's time to get on to some what we've been up to this week, or this past 2 weeks, because, as I've alluded to before, we had quite the audio glitch with Discord last week and couldn't record. But, let's start off with what you've been listening to, buddy.
Oh, boy! I actually have more than a couple things to talk about. So I did some lawn work recently, and you know what I wanted to listen to? I wanted to listen to some Mabim Bam episodes.
Some what episodes?
Mabim Bam.
I have not heard of this.
My Brother, and Me. It is an advice podcast for the modern era, meaning that basically they get sent questions asking for advice, and they just make jokes.
Ah.
And they have had some great, excellent bits. Over time, just so many good bits. And it's just really fun. I think they're maybe in like a guest star era right now, because in the first episode I listened to had Laura Kate Dale, the video game journalist, and the second one had trying to think. It was a Hollywood kind of star. More than that, like, I'm trying to remember who it was. Maybe I'll be able to figure out by looking at the podcast. Oh, Jesse Eisenberg. Jesse Eisenberg was an episode.
Well, that's interesting.
Oh yeah. They are a lot of people's favorite podcast. Like Lin-Manuel Miranda loves the podcast. To the point, like, when he was being interviewed by Stephen Colbert on Colbert's late night talk show, he did a Mabim Bam joke.
Damn.
Like, in front of the world and everyone. Because they had a bit forever ago talking about, cars should have more than one horn. You should have a horn for being angry. You should have a horn for just going like, "Hey, I just want to let you know it's all cool." And
I think I've heard that somewhere before. I don't know if it was there or somewhere else, but that's a good idea.
And a good job horn. He just press it and it goes, "Good job." And he did that on Colbert show. But Mabim Bam is genuinely one of the raunchiest, wholesome advice podcast shows ever. Like, they will tell a lot of jokes about dicks, but it's just good shit. And they're all brothers. They grew up with each other. And they have another podcast with their dad where they play Dungeons and Dragons. And, like, it's just really good shit. It's that good shit. That good shit. I had to.
Such good shit.
Such good shit. But yeah, my brother and me, the McElroy brothers, Griffin, Travis. Shit, what the fuck is this older? What's the older? I am such a bad fan right now. I can't remember. It's the Griffin, Travis.
I have no idea what this is, so I'm just letting you struggle.
Oh, fuck me. There's 3 brothers. McElroy brothers. Justin, Travis, and Griffin. But I mean, come on. How can you not look at these sweet, wholesome boys and not fall in love immediately with them?
Those do look like some boys.
Yep. They said like boy like 5 times in every episode too.
Is that where we got it from? I feel like you might have said it first. And you know what? I know where I got it from. You got it from these guys. I got it from the fucking procrastinators.
They
have ham boy. They had ham boy, and then they just started putting boy on the end of everything. Like, you're a suffing boy.
Next thing I kind of listened to was Sledgehammer by Peter Gabriel. Good classic 80s song. I think the music video kind of overshadows it in a lot of people's popular conscious of it. Like, the song is solid. But because the music video is so fucking good, it kind of like overlaps it a little bit. I watched Trico play Butter live. They're a Japanese math rock band where the 2 guitar players and the bassist are all girls, and they kind of have a rotating session musician play drums for them. They're really good, and I really love them. I listened to. They're new to me. Kind of. The best way to put it is like Devo core punk band, where they take the punk stuff that Devo did in their earlier career and still today, and basically expand on it more and do weird things with it. So they create a bunch of neat, cool sounds, and it's really hyperactive punk rock, and it's this whole scene where they're from, and like their art is really interesting. It's a lot of trading, and it's kind of lo-fi, and it's really kind of cool stuff. I really dig it.
Nice.
And I listened to some Too Many Zoos, which is a instrumental saxophone band from New York that just does a bunch of dope shit. And I because I've listened to them forever, but I kind of re-listened to them this past couple weeks because apparently Fortnite stole the saxophone players dancing and put it as a dance and one of their emotes. They're known for doing this, where they steal dances from things and not pay.
Yeah, well, that's kind of how the internet works.
But yeah, that's what I've been listening to.
All right. Well, I really did not have time for music, even though it's been 2 weeks. There's just been like very little me actually intentionally seeking out things to listen to them. I did put on a playlist of every theme Kenny Omega has ever had the other day when I went and did like a big long workout for the first time in a couple weeks. Because usually I just work out periodically for the day. putting in like a set of sit-ups here, a set of push-ups there, that kind of thing. But Wednesday I was like, I haven't had a proper workout in a while, so I spent like 45 minutes just doing every exercise I could think of until I was exhausted while listening to Kenny Omega themes, and that was pretty badass.
I bet it was mega, man.
It was. I felt pretty mega after that. But I did listen to a new podcast, well, new to me, because it's probably the tardiest I've been to a party in quite a while, except for later on in this podcast, we'll talk about some other tardy to the party things. But I finally started listening to the Joe Rogan Experience.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It is way more like talk radio than I have ever expected a podcast to be. Because it is talk radio.
You know what? Funny thing, I don't really listen and I don't really plan on. I did watch an episode of the Joe Rogan Experience when Bernie Sanders was on.
I've downloaded that episode. I have not listened to it yet.
It was good. It was good. It was nice to actually see Bernie Sanders get time to actually talk.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to listen to every episode of this because he puts out like 4 a week. But whenever there's like a guest who I know who it is or somebody tells me it was a really good episode, I'll download that one and listen to it. But I went ahead and listened to the, I guess, sort of infamous Elon Musk one. And then I listened to an episode that came out fairly recently with a guest named Bob Lazar, who is a guy who claims to have worked at Area 51. And that is why I decided to make the jump and finally start listening to Joe Rogan Experience, because somebody on a podcast about the Area 51 meme brought up this episode of the Joe Rogan Experience and says they think it might have been the initial like thing that inspired the meme, because oh boy was that episode conspiracy theory. And like the entire time Joe is going like, no, I think it's important to get this kind of information out there and talk of it. And I genuinely could not tell if he actually believes this shit or he was just trying to be nice to the guest and get him to keep talking.
I mean, here's the thing. One of the questions he asked Bernie Sanders was, hey, if you're elected president, will you tell us about aliens?
Okay, so he probably does actually believe that. But I'm just going to say it right here. I do not think Bob Lazar actually worked at Area 51. Just the way he talks sounded very rehearsed and very, I'm trying to cover for things I can't actually explain in my story. Very typical conspiracy theorist, I'm bullshitting for attention kind of stuff. Especially when he kept constantly going, I'm not trying to get attention. I hate attention. This makes people come and camp out on my front lawn and ask me about aliens and shit. I don't like that. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It's like, okay, Bob, just keep telling me about those flying saucers you worked on. That's kind of fun. Yeah. But that's everything I listened to this week. Chris, what did you watch?
Oh boy. You know me and watching a bunch of shit.
Oh yeah, I think we might have actually watched the same amount of shit this time because I had 2 weeks to watch shit.
Let's see. Let's put this to the test. All right. I watched episodes 3, 4, and 5 of Gundam, and it's slowly becoming one of my favorite animes.
Oh, wow.
I'm watching the 79 Gundam, so...
That's impressive. Cool. Especially because... to me, that's impressive because I watched the first 2 film compilations, and for me, even those, really chopped up or trying to fit 20 episodes into an hour and a half, felt really slow. So...
Here's the thing, I like the slow pace of it because it feels like a war. Because every episode, it's, all right, we are in a new situation and Char is doing something and we got to figure out what we got to do in response.
That's
so
fair.
the first two episodes are all about the colony, Side 7, trying to get on the ship and leave while it is being exploded by the Zeon, by Zeon. The next episode is Char is chasing them, and Amuro, the guy who landed in the Gundam robot, and has never fought in combat, is basically told, all right, you know how to pilot Gundam. You're the only person we can trust right now. You got to protect us. You got to protect us from Char. And Amuro's going like, okay, fuck. And then the next episode, they realize, oh, wait a second. They're calling for backup, and they haven't attacked us in a good long while. If we hit them real quick, we will have more time to get away. So Amuro goes in with another dude in basically like a space plane, fighter jet, dogfighty dude, and they go like, all right, we're going to tactic our way around their ship so we can hit them and strike them and give them a blow so we can get away better. And like, oh, there's like they go through the tactics and their mindset because the pilot guy is asking, hey Amuro, why are you going the long way around? We could just make a straight beeline for them this way. And Amuro goes like, oh no, if we go this way, we'll be in the sun and they'll have a harder time seeing us. Like, that's fascinating, and I love that aspect of the show so far.
Yeah, I think I remember that stuff from the first movie.
And eventually they get to a military base in an asteroid, and the military base is going like, all right, you, a civilian, has taken military equipment. No, you're in jail now. And everybody's going like, bitch, he's the only one who's been saving our asses. Stop this. And like, guess who appears but Char Aznable, putting a giant wrench in plans and just fucking shit up. And I'm loving the back and forth because that's really interesting to me. So yeah, Gundam is fucking great.
Well, good for Gundam. Good for you for watching a thing that's great.
I've also watched the first 3 episodes of Outlaw Star.
Ooh, that is an anime that's been on my list for quite a while, because from what I understand, it's kind of like the black sheep of the 90s space animes that were really good. Like, there's Cowboy Bebop, something else that I can't remember the name of, and that.
Is it Gundam Wing?
It might be Gundam Wing.
Yeah. But no, Outlaw Star is great. It's a lot more Western. It's very Western, very cowboy. And there's a lot, and so far it's like 3 episodes of setup. There's no there's no formula so far, and I think that's great. It's a very serialized story, but it's very much, we're setting up all the characters who we are going to be playing with, and they are taking their time so we can actually learn to appreciate them, which is great.
Nice.
Also, it's really interesting, the aesthetic it may be vaguely, not racist, but the aesthetic they're going for, the pirates that are attacking our main heroes, is like Taoist Chinese, a lot of like yin-yang symbols, a lot of ancient magic, and it's very interesting that the main villains of this whole thing is magic-based in this very sci-fi, space opera kind of Wild West setting, and it's just really nice. And but yeah, Outlaw Star is just good. Really great ship designs, some interesting robots that have appeared, not like mecha, but like power armor from like aliens. So that kind of thing. Yeah, but like, I say this has one of the more. It has just a solid aesthetic as Cowboy Bebop, because Cowboy Bebop has a brilliant aesthetic. But while Cowboy Bebop is jazz, it's like, yeah, jazz. Outlaw Star is like Bon Jovi in the best way possible. Like, the intro theme is kind of like that bar rock, like, yeah, we're just gonna get drunk and have fun.
Cool.
Yeah. I also watched a more recent anime, Snow White with the Red Hair. Have you heard of it?
Sounds familiar. I'm not sure, though.
It's a shoujo rom-com anime from like a good couple of years ago. Essentially, the setup is You follow Snow White, but her name is Japanese, so Shirayuki. And she's an herbalist in this little kingdom. And the prince of that kingdom sees her and goes like, oh shit, she has really pretty red hair that no one else really has. I want to lock her up in my castle and treat her as a sex object.
As you do.
Well, she finds out, and
at that moment just scrolling through Reddit looking at sexy photos of anime girls.
Yes, but he's a prince of a medieval kingdom, so he has the power to do that.
Oh shit! This just got real. The game is no longer a game.
So she goes, you know what? Fuck it. Cuts her hair and like puts it in a ponytail, cuts it off, leaves it in her store with a note and says, "Here, you wanted something beautiful, right?" And it's like, oh. Like that's not exactly what she said, but like it was like, bitch. So she runs off to a neighboring kingdom. She comes to this little house, hunting hut, whatever, and a group of people of a venturing sort meet her, and they go like, "Oh shit, you're running away?" And yeah, no, we'll help you out. Don't worry, we're not dicks. But then the day after that, a basket of apples appear, and if you know Snow White, you know what happens.
Yeah.
This is a little bit different. They're discussing everything, and the prince and the dude basically that she runs into picks up one of the apples and takes a bite out of it, and immediately falls over. And the two companions come in and go like, "Oh shit, those apples were poisoned. They were trying to poison you so they could bring you back and do what they were planning." And so they basically all get pissed off at that. And the Captain Knight dude comes and says, "All right, well, shit, that's not how I planned it to do. But hey, if you come with me and do the sex concubine thing, I'll give him the antidote." And she, being a good person, goes like, "All right, fine, fuck it, I'll do it." So she goes and meets the prince. And he's going like, "Ha, I'm a rapey douchebag." But who shows up with the dude? And guess what he does? He takes out his sword, opens it, and there's a royal emblem there. And he goes, "Hey, motherfucker, I'm the prince of this other kingdom. And I, like, if you fucked up." And he goes like, "Oh shit, I fucked up." And basically Snow White goes to the other kingdom, and the anime is her adventures there and the budding romance between her and the prince. The good prince, not the dickhole prince. So yeah.
Sounds like a good time.
Yeah, because also it doesn't treat her like a mewling, like, "Oh, look at her, she's so pretty," or like she's a princess kind of character. No, she's gung-ho. She wants to work. She wants to get her hands dirty and do shit. And she gets herself out of sticky situations. She's not just waiting for her Prince Charming to come save her. So it's refreshing in that way. Let's see. Next thing I watched, Redline.
Ooh, that's a infamously good movie or an infamously bad movie, depending on your taste.
Well, if you think Redline is bad, you have bad taste. It is the story of an intergalactic race.
Few Adams confirmed for bad taste.
He didn't like Redline?
I think that's what he said on Twitter a few weeks ago when he watched it.
I'll have to look that up.
I think he said something along the lines of it was just a bit too much for him.
Yeah, and here's the thing. That's not a bad take. That's not like, oh, the movie's bad. That's a person who's not an anime person watching 10 anime at once. Like, here's the thing. I am used to anime, so watching this is like, oh yeah, no, this is like a little spicy. It's like hot sauce. He's not used to eating spicy things, so going from nothing to a ghost pepper is insanity. But see, I'm used to eating spicy shit, so I'm going not from nothing to a ghost. I'm going from like a jalapeno or Carolina Reaper to a ghost.
I see.
I already have the taste for it, so I'm not gonna immediately be bombarded by what the fuck is this shit, you know? It's like that's like an opinion I can understand. If you go like, oh, the movie shit, it doesn't look good. It's like, bitch, please. But it's an intergalactic race, and we follow our main character who looks like Space Dandy as he drives a car in a race against a bunch of spaceships.
Nice.
On a planet where they don't want them there, so they basically send the giant army after all the racers. And it's just a bunch of like really great set pieces and just really solid action. Some of the most beautiful animation you've seen. It's great. Red Line is fantastic, and I put it on the list because if it comes on the list tonight, I am down for watching it again. That's how good it was.
Cool.
Yeah, like it's that good. So you know that one thing you just finished watching for over the past 4 to 5 weeks?
Did you build up?
Yeah, I started watching Build.
Hey! How far are you and how do you like it?
I've only seen one episode because of my weird thing. So I only just introduced to all the characters, all the world, and nothing really explained so far. But they posed the question like, "Who's this Man-Bat person?"
Yeah, that's interesting that you only watched the first episode because, I think that's also part of the reason why I chose to stop watching Toku week to week and eventually watch this all kind of in a big block because this is part of a trend that Writer and Sentai have sort of had recently where the first 5 episodes are kind of the pilot, but we air them 1 week at a time because that's our viewing schedule and we're sticking to it, damn it.
I'm fine with it just because I'm not being forced to watch it this way. I'm choosing to. And I think that cognitive difference helps a little bit. But yeah, just set up a lot of cool stuff. I can't wait to see more. I watched episode 1 of Genlock.
Genlock. That rings a bell, but I'm not sure.
It's the mecha anime made by Rooster Teeth.
Oh!
Yeah, it's really interesting setup. A lot of questions. The mecha designs so far are kind of basic, but in the intro, in the opening, you see more of them. Yeah, and they evolve and change and turn more in like traditional Japanese style mecha, which is interesting and cool. They didn't set up everything, but they set up a few things. They set up the main character, who's played by he played Killmonger in Black Panther.
Michael B. Jordan.
Michael B. Jordan, right. I knew it was Michael something. Michael B. Jordan. I just realized why he has to go by Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah. Isn't he related to the other Michael Jordan?
I have no idea, but here's the thing. If you are a SAG member, a Screen Actors Guild member, you are not allowed to have a name of another member of the Screen Actors Guild. And guess what person was in a major motion picture in the 90s?
Come on and slam now.
So legally, he cannot be Michael Jordan as an actor. He has to have a middle initial. Oh, that's fun.
I wonder if he was born with that middle initial or if he had to come up with it. And if he had to come up with it, I need to know what it stands for.
If he has to come up with it, I hope to God it's basketball.
You know, that or Michael Badass Jordan.
I mean, Michael J. Fox isn't, his middle name doesn't start with a J. He just came up with that. But yeah, Genlock was pretty cool. A lot of world building, a lot of like all this kind of stuff. And they show this giant battle between like this weird alien force kind of thing. They may be aliens, they may just be like enemy humans. I can't remember, but they show the battle and then our heroes lose and it just cuts to like 5 years later. And it's like, oh, and they just go like, no, we've been beaten pretty bad. They've taken control of the Eastern Seaboard. We are in the Midwest, and like that's our end border. And it's like, oh shit, they're fucked. But hey, now they have giant robots. I watched episode 1 of Slam Dunk.
I feel like I should recognize that as well, but I don't.
Well, here's the thing. In the early 90s, Shonen Jump had what is the more traditional big three. Dragon Ball Z, Yu Yu Hakusho, and Slam Dunk.
Huh.
Slam Dunk
was this like 90s, 80s Haikyuu?
It's about basketball, yeah. It's a sports anime from that time. The little bit different is the main character's kind of a delinquent kind of dude. He looks like the redhead with the pompadour from Yu Yu Hakusho. But basically he's trying to fall in love, but all the girls reject him, and he eventually gets into high school, and this one girl's like, hey, you're really tall. I bet you're really good at basketball. And he just bullshits and goes like, yeah, I love basketball. And she goes like, oh shit, that's dope. And they go to a gym and she goes like, can you show me a slam dunk? And he's like, I just want to make sure. What are you talking about? And she goes like, oh yeah, no, you take the ball and you like slam it into the hoop. And he goes like, oh shit, I can do that. And he just starts doing a full run at the hoop, no dribbling, nothing. And she goes like, why isn't he dribbling? And he jumps up and it looks like he's about to slam dunk, but he hits his face on the backboard.
Excellent. It's
not like one of those sports animes where like, oh, I immediately can pick up this sport and I'm really good at it. Like, no, he's shit at it, but he's tall and he's strong and he can probably be good at it too.
So it just has to work.
Yeah, he just has to work at it. And it's like, this has some of the greatest fucking anime aesthetic ever. Like, the mid cards when they go into advertisements are great and beautiful. Nice. Because it's in English and like, not English. Like, they got a person who actually knows their shit and spoke in really good English. Like, like, when I first heard it, it was like, what the that's cool. Especially because basketball is so heavily associated with America. All around the world, it's seen as a very American sport. So, it's really interesting. But no real basketball yet. It's very build up to it.
Cool. Doesn't feel the need to go right into it.
Yeah. I watched episodes 3 and 4 of Hell Hazard. Basically, the Dick Hole bad guy is going after a demon sword, and the good guys go like, no, we gotta stop him. So they go to the demon sword area and they go like, where is he? And he appears up and he goes like, ha, I fooled you. I wanted you to lead me here because I didn't know where it was. And they go like, you motherfucker. And they find the demon sword. But here's the thing, it's actually a lady who's a robot. And she goes like, all y'all are bitches, and she starts wrecking shit. Yeah, and that's pretty much what happened. There's more, but like that's the sum of it. I watched episode 5 of Megalobox. Turns out the coach had a previous student, but he went to war and lost his legs. But now he's back, and he's a really good boxer, and he wants revenge.
Cool.
Yeah. Like, it's really cool, and it's just interesting because they're already dealing so much with cyborg stuff that they just gave him cyborg legs, and it's like, all right, cool, you're good to box. Yeah. But it's really setting up for the big match, which is in episode 6, which I haven't seen yet. I watched episode 5 and 6 of Future GPX. They're setting up for the next race. We meet a good boy racer who befriends our main character and helps him get out of some tough situations. And it's like, yeah, friendship. They also run into like a punk rock racer dude in a purple car who they mistake for a kidnapper in a different purple car.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's a little bit filler until the next big race, but it's good for introducing new characters and getting some characterization across. It's really good. Really solid. And I am loving the ending so much, I kind of want to make a video essay just on how good that ending theme is.
Nice.
I watched episode 1 of How to Keep a Mummy, which is just simply like a comedy show where this dude's dad sends him basically a 3-inch tall sentient living mummy that just becomes like his pet. And it's just adorable things with this little tiny mummy. That's all the show is.
God bless Japan.
Oh man. But like in the intro you see other creatures, like there's gonna be an Oni, and there's gonna be like a couple of other things. Like I can't remember what it was, but there was like an Oni, maybe a dragon, but they're all like 3 to 5 inches tall. So they all ride on everybody's shoulder, but like it's a mummy and it's adorable. So yeah, so if you need something not necessarily to stimulate you, but to kind of give you a feeling of warmth and fluff, it's a very good warm blanket show.
Nice.
Because the worst struggle is I need to find the favorite food of this tiny, adorable mummy. I also watched the Kirby Reanimated collab.
Nice.
Basically, it's a common thing that people have been doing lately, especially animators, in order to just animate shit and do stuff. Also because it can get noticed and actually watched through the algorithm, because they reanimate an entire episode of a TV show. And this one is an episode of Kirby's Right Back at You. I don't remember the name of the episode, but it was the episode where all the characters basically animate, basically learn about animation and all the rigors and troubles with it. And every once in a while, the characters look into the screen and go like, animators sure do a lot of work, don't they?
Indeed.
But it's really cool to see a lot of different animation styles, a lot of different takes, a lot of different like visual jokes people sneak in. Like there were some where like they just turned the characters into JoJo. And you can never go wrong with Kirby. Let's see. I watched episode 3 of Power Rangers Beast Morphers.
Hey, how's that going?
Here's the thing. You know how in Power Rangers they used to do like single episodes focused on one character?
Yeah, Ranger Red, Ranger Blue, Ranger Yellow. Those good old RPM one-shots.
Well, this is an episode with the characterization for the Yellow Ranger.
Ooh.
Where she's all about like, hey, I wanna help the city, so let's make these really cool powered bikes powered off of the morphing grid and help declutter the city with traffic. You know, like more people riding bikes means less cars. I was like, okay, that's cool. And the mayor's like, okay, we were gonna build this road, but I will give this idea a chance, and if it works, hey, we don't have to spend all this money on the road, and we can spend it on better, more fruitful things. And she's like, yeah, we can also save animals and do all that kind of stuff. And there's a really like, they use her character-focused episode to give characterization to other characters as well. Like, it's not just we're only focusing on her. There's also a moment where their science guy is going like, oh yeah, my parents were never really around, but you know, since you guys came around, I feel like we're a family. And it's like, oh, that's nice and sweet. But like, it wasn't the sole focus of the episode, so it felt more natural. And it's like, this is really well written. Holy shit, Power Rangers is well written again.
Yeah, I gotta get on Beast Morphers.
It is really, really good and really solid. It's just nice to have a good Power Ranger season.
Mm-hmm. As soon as it gets on Netflix, I'll probably start watching it. Assuming Hasbro keeps up that Netflix deal.
I watched episode 1 of Zoids.
All right.
giant mechanical beasts. Basically, it's just like the main character finds the liger and fights off some bandits. That's pretty much the first episode. But I remember watching Zoids growing up, so I kind of wanted to rewatch it. And since I was already watching a bunch of mecha, why not throw in a tiger mecha? Yeah. It's there.
Indeed. It sure is.
I watched JoJo Part 5, Episode 8. This is kind of the wrap-up for the fight that kind of started in the last episode. Mista is chasing after this one dude, and we find out what his power is. He can basically make things stop in air. So, like, he can throw up a rock, and he can make that rock stay in place. Really interesting power. He uses it in a lot of interesting ways. Like, he falls off the mountain that they're climbing up on a car. The car is going up a mountain, and he falls off the mountain. So what he does is he gets a bunch of rocks, throws them in the air, freezes them, and then climbs up the rocks like he's climbing, like he's bouldering. But it's in the air on just things he used. And it's like, oh shit. And then he's up in the air and he's just floating on a rock he made solid. And it's like, oh, that's really interesting. And like he'll freeze a bullet in the air and he just flicks it over and over and over again and builds up a momentum that when he unfreezes it, it goes in that direction. So it's a really interesting fight because the other guy's whole power is he can manipulate the trajectory of his bullets. So what uses that power to a guy who can just freeze a bullet? So it's a lot of like, oh, he's shooting in one direction in order to trick the guy into stopping this and doing all. And it's really interesting how everything was just like structured. And it's just like, this is what I love JoJo about. It's just like strategy upon strategy upon strategy upon bullshit and pulling shit out of your ass. It's really good. JoJo's fantastic. And finally, I watched episode 4 of Macross.
Yay!
I told you I watched a lot of shit.
How many things is that exactly?
Okay, let's real quick. I watched.
You can't count multiple episodes of things as one thing.
Okay, I was just gonna say total things, but okay, that's Gundam, Outlaw Star, Snow White, Red Line, Kamen Rider, Genlock, Slam Dunk, Okay, wait. Jesus Christ. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16.
Wow, you've got me beat by 5.
Hell yeah, bitch. I don't even have to count in multiple episodes. Because if we did, that'd be 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. But Macross episode 4. In the last episode, the Macross battleship basically warped, but they didn't know jack shit what they were doing. So instead of going to the other side of the moon, which is what their plan was, they went to the other side of Pluto with a lot of the landmass that was under the Macross. So now there's a bunch of refugees floating out in space. And the captain goes like, oh shit, we got to save them. So they bring them all on the ship. And we follow our main protagonist dude and Minmay, which is her name, one of the famous female characters. They're in this belly of the ship, and they don't know how to get back to the rest of the ship. They don't know. They can't find the bridge. They can't find anything, and they basically have to struggle and survive. So they build up a little camp. They ration their food, and every day they just go out and try and find the way to the rest of the ship. And that lasts for like 12 days. Like they don't have any more food. They're basically figuring, oh, we're gonna die here. To the point where Minmay goes like, you know what I wanted to be? I wanted to be a bride. she takes off the main male character's scarf, which is a white scarf. She puts it over her head and says, "For one moment, can I be a bride?" And he's like, "What do you mean?" It's like, "We are just gonna die here, and we gotta admit that. And I'd rather die." Like, and she's hysterical and it's like, "We're gonna fucking die here." And then all of a sudden, a giant hole appears above them, and a thing crashes down, and you hear people go, "Oh shit!" And they go, "Wait a second, is that Minmay and the other dude? Oh shit! What the fuck are you doing down there?" They take down an elevator and bring them up, and and you find out that basically there was a ton of empty space in this spaceship, so the refugees were basically taking the bits of the buildings that were jumped into space with the ship and building up a new town in the spaceship for them to live in while they are slowly making their way back to Earth. And they were just underneath this town the whole time. Like, and as soon as they're back up with the rest of the people, Minmay starts laughing and joking with her family, and the dude goes like, "Damn, like 5 minutes ago she was fucking crazy. I want to know more about her," just because like she's able to bounce back from that. That's interesting for him. And that's where the episode ends. For a mecha show, a lot less mecha than I thought there would be.
Huh.
But it is good. It is really good. There's a reason Macross is still a mainstay in anime.
Nice.
So why don't you tell me about your 11 shows that you watched?
Well, it's not exactly 11 shows. It's like 11 shows and movies, but you know, it was moving pictures with sounds attached. So
I mean, it's no 16.
Do I have to come down there? Thought not. Okay, so I started watching Kamen Rider Blade because I can't not be watching Tokusatsu, so I had to start up another Tokusatsu, and I said, hey, Kuga's probably my favorite Rider show. I should try some more early Heisei, see if early Heisei is just my jam. Hey, guess what?
Wesley Snipes in it.
That and early Heisei is just my jam. Because Blade is kind of infamous for being bad for like the first 10 or 15 episodes, but amazing for the entire rest of the series. I'm 10 episodes in, and I love it.
Oh, that's good.
I don't see anything wrong with this show. And for years, I've been told by Rider fans, like, oh, the first 10 episodes of Blade are fucking awful. I stopped watching it the first time through, but then somebody told me it got good later, so I went back and watched it, and those first 10 episodes were still really bad. But once I got through that slog, the rest of the series was so rewarding to watch. And that early theme song, oh my god, so cringy, so terrible. I'm so glad they changed it after the fourth writer came in. I'm sitting here and I'm like, this is really good shit. I don't know what you guys are on. And keep in mind, this is the guy who regularly gets into arguments with people because he doesn't like both Gaim and thighs. So I'm kind of in a place right now where I'm going, is it me that has shit taste, or is it just every other Kamen Rider fan? It's every other Kamen Rider fan.
I mean, it's one of Vangelis's favorite seasons.
Yeah, like he's the first guy who I heard say was like the first few episodes are awful. And I think that kind of scared me away from it because Vangelis is the guy who got me into Tokusatsu. But honestly, it's really solid stuff. I like how the theme of the show is jobs and duty and tasks without being like this overly dramatic military thing. It's all very subtle where everybody sort of has a task in life right now that they understand they have to do this for whatever reason. Like the main two writers, Blade and Garen, are common writers because it's their job. They were hired by this organization to destroy these monsters that the organization accidentally released. But in the first episode, the organization gets completely destroyed and disseminated because Garen finds out they were doing some fucked up shit and decided, well, screw you guys, I'm going to betray you and go off and try and fix this on my own. So Blade's kind of spending the early episodes figuring out what the hell he's supposed to do now that the organization isn't around. And eventually he realizes whether or not that organization is there to back him, he's still a writer. It's still his job to stop these things. And he eventually does team back up with Garen. Well, Garen's got this whole thing of he feels this responsibility because chronologically he was the first writer in the series, even though when we actually start watching, both Garen and Blade are already writers, but Blade's kind of the newer one. But he was the first one, so he feels like it's his responsibility to make sure this is done right, and he has this power, so he has to hold this organization that gave him the power responsible for doing fucked up shit. But at the same time, he's also got this sort of kind of twisted revenge complex where the writer system that was given to him was imperfect, and so now his body is breaking down, and at some point he is going to die. Like transforming into a writer is eventually smoking a cigarette for him. It's slowly wearing down his cells, and eventually he will just break apart and die. And so he's got this whole kind of fuck you for doing this to me thing to these people who used to be his bosses. And then we've got
So you would say with great power must also come great responsibility?
Kinda, yeah. Because we've also got this third writer who I think this is the only time I've ever seen a third writer show up within the first 5 episodes of a series and not have the same belt as all the other writers. Common writer Chalice, at least I think that's how you pronounce it. Like the Japanese people say it like Callus, but the way it's spelled, it looks like it should be Chalice. So I'm calling him Common writer Chalice until told otherwise. But he has like a whole different set of gear, like a secondary writer would. But he's there in the first 5 episodes, which is kind of crazy. And he's got this whole thing where he's like descended from or is one of or is like an offshoot of the race of people that the monsters are in this series. And he is and we don't know why he's a writer yet. He just is. And he's fighting the monsters, but he's also fighting the writers and the remnants of the organization that is around doing shadowy shit. And he's got this whole thing where the reason he fights is whenever this little girl that he's involved with is put in danger. Like you'll see on the news, like, oh, she went on a field trip to the observatory today, and the observatory is being attacked by a monster. I better go. It's that kind of a thing. And the reason he feels that way is shortly after he awakened, he got in a fight with a monster and killed it, but also accidentally killed the girl's father, who was hiking in the woods at the time and was like a nature photographer. And like his last act was to give Chalice a photograph of his daughter and wife and say, find them and protect them. I don't want them to be alone. And so he's kind of just playing the part of being this traveler who's renting a room from them right now, but he's also secretly watching over and protecting the little girl because he sees that as his job. The first thing that happened to him after he woke up from being in prison for however many thousands of years was that he was given this task by this man whose death is his fault. So there's this very interesting dichotomy, and all the side characters have this to an extent too. Like the love interest for the season worked for the organization alongside Blade and Garen. There's like a photographer news guy who's kind of the comic relief for the season, but his whole motivation is, I'm trying to get the truth out there about this monster business, so Blade, come stay with me and let me interview you after every fight so I can write a book when this is all said and done. yeah, it's really cool, and I like it a lot. The atmosphere is great too. It just has a style of shooting, and it uses a lot of locations that you don't see in Modern Rider anymore. Probably because during this period they were used to death. And it's also one of the rare Rider shows where they started shooting it in December, so there's some fights in the snow in the early episodes, and fights in the snow. They're one of those things that is very rare in Tokusatsu, but whenever it happens, I get all giddy. And also, that theme song is great. Like, I've heard Elements before, I like Elements, but Blade Brave is really fun for a Rider theme. I don't get why people hate it. So that's my thoughts on Blade.
Yeah, can't wait to see more Harsha Ali.
Yeah, that'll be fun. I was gonna make, like, last week I was planning to make like a big joke of, oh, I started watching it because Marvel announced they're doing a movie, so I figured I better check out the source material. But then another week went by and I had a bunch of shit go on, so I forgot about that. Oh well. Anyways, the next thing I watched was Hot Wheels Highway 35 World Race. Have you ever heard of this, Chris?
Why did you watch that?
I watched it because nostalgia. This is something I owned on VHS as a kid and put on in the background while I was playing with my toys all the time. But I haven't seen it since I was like 9.
I mean, I used to have one of those like big chunky Hot Wheel NASCAR toys.
Mm-hmm.
With like all the pop-out features.
Yeah. But I remembered this a few weeks ago, and I was like, I wonder if it's available for streaming anywhere, or it got released on DVD or anything. And wouldn't you know it, it came out at that time when the world was transitioning between VHS and DVD and slowly phasing out VHS. So there was both a VHS and a DVD release, and they look identical. So I bought the DVD release from a Goodwill in Florida and had it shipped here. And it's in really good condition, and it looks exactly like the VHS release I had when I was a kid. So I was like, this is a great kind of nostalgic thing to put on my shelf. But also, I haven't seen him forever, so let's watch it and see how bad it actually was. And there are things from my childhood that I have seen that are a lot worse than this, but it ain't good. It is one of the most base, just an excuse to have media attached to our toy line things I have ever seen. Like, there's character development in this that just doesn't happen, or happens in so base, quick of a way that it's hilarious. Like, the main character, Vert Wheeler, he's a 16-year-old kid. He starts out being like a skateboarder, cool guy, surf rat kind of a guy, and he's getting home from skating with his buddy, and his dad's coming out in his army uniform, and he's like, "Dad, where are you going? This was the day I was supposed to get my driver's license." And his dad's like, "I'm sorry, G.I. Joe called. I need to go be in that now. We're going to have to do this another time, but I can drop you at the testing facility if you like, and you can do it on your own." And he's like, "We were going to do this together. This was supposed to be my special day." "Well, some things are more important than getting your driver's license, son. There's things I can't control. You have to learn to be a team player, Vert. One day you'll learn to do that." And then he gets called to be in the World Race by Zordon / Nikola Tesla / Tony Stark looking dude, along with a bunch of other actually qualified drivers from around the world. Now, he doesn't get this kid when he doesn't have his license. We do immediately get a scene of him getting his license, but he gets home and there's this fancy, cool Hot Wheels car that drives him to the place where the world race starts. And he's constantly saying to the other drivers who are like, "Hey, man, you're cool. We should team up." He's like, "Forget it, man. I'm a team of one." Like that kind of cheesy, trying to be cool, early 2000s line. Yeah. And then there's a moment later in the show, because this isn't an actual movie. This is like 4 or 5 episodes of a TV show, like the 4 pilot episodes of a TV show stitched together into a movie. And there's a moment like an episode and a half later where Zordon / Nikola Tesla / Tony Stark is like, for the next few laps of the world race, you're going to need to merge into teams, and we're going to have each type of there's different types of cars, so now everybody who has this type of car has to be on the team with somebody else, and here's all the team captains. You guys got to pick your other racers, even though it's already kind of predetermined because everybody has these specific kinds of cars. And he doesn't even bat an eye. There's no complaining from Vert. He's just like, whatever it takes to win, I guess. And then the next episode, he has a team. Okay. There's also some very cheesy, we're trying to send a message about not just being greedy and doing things for power, and you got to do things because it's good for everybody stuff towards the end, where the whole plot of this series is the world race is like an ancient Mayan prophecy kind of thing that was set up by this long dead race of aliens called the Accelerons, who left behind a tablet that said, if you go on these Hot Wheels race tracks that you can only get to by driving these special type of cars that we have the schematics for thousands of years ago, and at I think it's not 88 miles per hour. That's Back to the Future. 35 miles per hour, because it's Hot Wheels Highway 35. If you go at 35 miles per hour, and they make 35 seem like it's way faster than it actually is because it's a kid's show. If you go at 35 miles per hour at these specific spots, portals will open to another dimension where these Hot Wheels tracks are. And if you race on them and win, you will eventually find this MacGuffin called the Wheel of Power, which is an infinite source of clean energy. And Zordon / Nikola Tesla / Tony Stark is having everybody race to get the Wheel of Power so he can use it to invent better shit for humans, I guess. He never really explains it. But when he gets the Wheel of Power at the end of the movie, he tries to plug it into his stuff so he can start siphoning power over it. And he shorts out the entirety of the United States. They just offhandedly say that. All of the United States is blacked out now. And they're and while this is happening, all the racers are like, yeah, that was fun. We should go race for fun now, even though that was really dangerous and some of us almost died. And they go, and Zordon / Nikola Tesla / Tony Stark is like, well, you can't go back on that. We took the Wheel of Power off. The Wheel of Power is the thing that makes that work. You can't go on Highway 35, the world race again. And they all lose it. They're like, what? You can't deny Highway 35 to us. Highway 35 is more than just a race. It's like a feeling inside of you. It's like, when did this happen? All of you have been arguing over who's going to win and what you're going to do with your prize money this entire time. It's really ridiculous. And then at the end, they fight an army of robots that are trying to get the Wheel of Power, and they return the Wheel of Power back to where they got it from, and it activates all the lights around this track, the final track they had driven on, and it's revealed to be a big city in an alternate dimension. And somebody says, this place is cool. And then another person says, no, man, it's hot. Hot Wheels City. That's what the rest of the show is going to be about, is protecting Hot Wheels City. And I'm like, all right, I haven't seen this in like 7 years. I don't think I'm going to need to see it again for another 7 years. Thanks for coming out, everyone. It was a good time, though. I had fun.
That sounds like a movie you riff, not that you watch.
Yeah, if it wasn't for the fact that I don't think they do animated movies, I would buy a copy of this to send to Best of the Worst. But then I watched some real shit, aka BoJack Horseman Season 5, Episodes 1 through 6, and God damn, is this season good? I mean, like, I'm one of those people who's kind of been on BoJack from day one, but like this season was knocking it out of the park. Mainly because instead of everybody kind of doing their own thing, but it all sort of surrounds BoJack, this is everybody definitively doing their own thing, but it's all in the same sort of vein. This is very much a season about that sort of mid-30s into your 40s regret about life that everybody kind of goes through of shoulda, coulda, woulda. I'm in this weird place. I don't know if I'm happy about how things have turned out. And it's hard right now. With also a lot of very biting current events satire. Like they had a pretty amazing episode about the current Hollywood scandal cycle. That is probably the first time I've seen something on that I went, yeah, completely agree. Great job, guys. And also a lot more funny than past seasons have been. Like, BoJack is definitely a very joke-loaded show, but it's not one I've laughed a whole lot at before. It's just kind of like, yeah, this is really good. I really appreciate the writing here. I agree. This season,
you give a sensible chuckle.
Yeah, this season I was busting a gut at least once an episode. It was a good time, especially that 6th episode, which I won't reveal the ending to it, but I'll just say it's probably one of the most brilliant one-take episodes of a thing I've ever seen. It's real good. If you don't watch BoJack, I'd highly recommend the show. And if you've fallen out of it, I'd say this season is definitely one to catch up for.
That sad horse boy.
Indeed. And then I watched the first 5 episodes of anime called Aggreshko, or Aggressive Retsuko, depending on the market.
Aggreshko.
Yeah, Aggreshko. I enjoyed this a whole lot. It's probably the best workplace comedy I have ever seen. And I am not one who's really into workplace comedies, especially when a lot of modern workplace comedies are stuff like The Office or Parks and Rec, which I know they're super popular. I know there's probably a few people listening to this that like those, but I don't at all. That style of comedy just does not work for me. I think it's really awkward and annoying. I'll only really like a joke from one of those when it reaches like meme level status, like what's his name yelling, "Everybody stay calm." I use that clip quite a bit. But this was great. This has got like that kind of very anime, poor girl wants to have a fun and exciting life, and she's actually really cute and cool. But it's got this very surrounding sort of cynical veneer of the Japanese workplace, the office, the salaryman environment, which is very similar to our own Western workplace, especially if you're a retail worker, because I'm a retail worker and I hard related to some of the stuff in this, especially the one character who's a hippo and a giant gossip and talks about how she has kids all the time. Basically the Karen of the office. And yeah, I got a Karen at my workplace. It's very much like that. So I got a good chuckle out of that character. And I like how, even though this is a 15-minute anime, it's not just a series of jokes and then reset button for the next episode. There is sort of a continuing plot here. There's little developments that happen each episode and sort of progress things in the direction of Retsuko is very lonely at the start, and she doesn't really have a lot going on in her life except she goes to work, she saves her money, and at night she goes to karaoke bars and sings death metal. That's kind of her relief from the workplace. That's her hobby, is letting out her rage through singing death metal songs. And very slowly through the course of the episodes, there's these two like fancy pants exec ladies who we see every episode walking through the halls, and it's like, wow, look at them, they're so cool, they have everything together. And then there's an episode where Retsuko's kind of trying to think of ways she can get out of being an office worker or doing the workforce at all, and she's like, you know, honestly, compared to this, I would be okay with being a stay-at-home mom. So I'm going to try and get myself a boyfriend. How do I do that? I need to get fit. I'm going to join a yoga class. And then the fancy ladies are in that yoga class, and they befriend her, and they start going out and having fun after yoga class every day. And eventually, she gets sort of tricked into taking them to karaoke with her. And there's this huge moment of like, oh God, what do I do? I can't tell these like fancy cool girls that I'm into death metal. I'm a girl. It's not cool for girls to like death metal, especially office girl, plain normal office girls like me. They're gonna think I'm weird, and they're not gonna want to hang out with me anymore. And then through some kind of goofy, contrived mumbo jumbo, they put on a death metal song for her, and she just instantly starts singing about how much she loves death. Because that's a thing in every episode. There's a sequence or two of her singing a sort of ad-lib death metal song about whatever's pissing her off in that episode. And they've been pressuring her this whole episode about, like, come on, pick a song. What kind of songs do you like? Come on. And that song, the death metal song, comes on, and she just goes like, I listen to metal every day. I want to crush your bones. I want to destroy everything. Metal is my passion. Metal is my life. And they're like, this is the best. You're awesome. Teach us to scream like you do. And she's like, okay, you got to really clench your vocal cords and all that. And they're friends. They're a cool group of friends by the end of that episode. And that's where I left off. And there's still like 10 more episodes in season 1. And there's a second season. So I'm interested to see where that goes. And I enjoyed it a lot and had fun. I'd highly recommend it.
That's good. That was made by the same people who made Hello Kitty.
Oh, nice.
Sanrio.
That explains why there's a shit ton of merch, because I went on Amazon and I was like, I wonder if I could get like a Retsuko plush. And there's like 5 different ones and 5 different ones of all the side characters. And I'm like, I bet you this was popular.
Yeah, it was made by the same group who made Hello Kitty. They also make that Gudetama, the lazy egg guy.
Well, if memory serves, that company just comes up with cute characters and then makes a bunch of shit for them. And then if that shit sells well, then they make a show. Like, that's how Hello Kitty became so popular.
I think Agretzko was the first, like, they did it the other way. They made an anime and then it was like, oh.
Okay, that's cool.
Because it started off as like 5-minute digital shorts.
Nice. And then I watched Full Force, the first ever iDubbbz documentary. Did you hear about or watch this, Chris?
I saw you shared it, but like I've never been a fan of iDubbbz, so I never really wanted to watch it.
Up until this came out, I was kind of a very casual iDubbbz observer. I always knew who he was. I saw the memes. I'd watch a video here or there, but I wasn't like super into his shit. Somebody shared this on Reddit, and I was just bored and had nothing to do that night, so I put it on. And it's an hour long, and it's him talking about how much he loves this like obscure, janky YouTuber that nobody's really heard of outside of editing his shit into memes, called Airsoft Fatty. That is his actual name. He is a fat kid, like a really, really fat kid from bumfuck nowhere who just happens to be really into airsoft guns and Star Wars. And so iDubbbz did a documentary on him, and it was really cool. And I got like, oh, iDubbbz isn't just some shitlord meme boy. He's actually really, really into YouTube and YouTubers and this medium and the kind of weird off-the-wall shit that can come out of it. And I want to watch more iDubbbz now. So I went and watched a lot of his back catalog, like basically every Content Cop, a lot of Kickstarter crap, stuff like that. And I think iDubbbz is cool now. He's definitely a YouTuber who I'm gonna keep more of an eye on, because this documentary was really great. Like, it never came off like he was trying to be like, look at this weird fucking guy. Isn't he weird and fucking, and don't you want to make fun of him? It was more like, I think it is interesting that this person exists and has maintained a presence on YouTube. I'd like to give them some exposure and talk to them and ask them some questions to just figure out why. and get some answers to things in their videos that have never been fully explained that I just want to know about. And because I'm a famous YouTube guy, I have the money to just fly out to where he lives and do that.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed it a whole lot. And if you're into documentaries or like YouTube meme culture, I would definitely recommend checking it out. Then I watched Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee season 6 because I just hadn't gotten around to that yet. And Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee is one of those shows where I really enjoy it most of the time, but I only ever watch it if it's a guest who I already know. Just because, like, Seinfeld is a great comedian, but if I don't know the other comedian going in already, I don't feel like I'm going to know the tone of the comedy, so I don't know if I'll be able to get into it or not. So for this season, I watched the episodes featuring Eddie Murphy, Matthew Broderick, Jamie Foxx, and Martin Short. And I'll just kind of go over each of them real quick. Eddie Murphy, I'll be honest, was the first time I was kind of bored during an episode because it is very just Jerry going on and on about how he likes Eddie Murphy's early career and how he thinks he was this great, really stylish stand-up. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool, but I kind of just like it when this show is you and another guy talking about everyday stuff or you and a woman talking about everyday stuff. And then the Matthew Broderick episode was kind of that to the max with a nice little cherry on top of they went to Mets Field during off season and were just allowed to walk around the stadium and do whatever the fuck they wanted for an afternoon. So it was very fun watching these two middle-aged men kind of live out a childhood dream, while also talking about stuff like, do you like walking with a coffee cup in your hand? No, I think it's a bad look. It's like you just expect TMZ to pop out and take a photo of you. And then the Jamie Foxx episode was very interesting just because I only really know him from movies. So getting to find out like some of what he's like as a person and what his stand-up was like was really interesting. And the Martin Short one was like just...
Was it short?
It was
long.
It was a shorter episode, yes, but it was oodles of fun because Martin Short is such a good guy. I like Martin Short. And then I watched The Princess and the Frog because that's been on Netflix for a good bit and I've never seen it. I kind of skipped that one. I went straight to Tangled when Tangled came out, and I still haven't seen Frozen. I've seen Moana, but I haven't seen Frozen.
Well, of course you should see Moana. It has the most electrifying man in sports entertainment.
Yeah, and we are all very grateful to him because he says you're welcome.
You know, the whole reason The Rock got that job was because he did sing in the WWE a long time ago.
I had no idea that.
So that's okay. Wrong way to put it. That's how Lin-Manuel Miranda knew how to write songs for The Rock. So he knew his register.
That's great.
So he was like, "Oh yeah, no, I watched a lot of those, so I could figure out how he sings, so I can write songs for him."
Awesome. But no, Princess and the Frog was good. I wouldn't say it's like the best Disney princess film ever, but it's a pretty solid one. Definitely like how hardworking and just invested in making this dream come true the main character is, and how that sort of brings the characters together rather than other either stereotypical Disney princess shit or more just like we're falling in love because we like each other. It's more like this prince goes from being kind of a dickhead who needs money to, oh, you're cool because you're working really hard for your money in a different way that I am that kind of is more valid. So I want to get with you.
The Princess and the Frog always struck me as a movie that in any other time in Disney's history, it'd been seen better light, but because it was like the final hand-drawn film, it had a lot more pressure, so it felt a lot more disappointing.
Yeah, and I didn't really care for the side character. Well, the crocodile was okay, but the other girl who's like just really wants to jump the prince's bones. Didn't particularly care for her. Her dad was awesome though. I probably just liked him because he was played by John Goodman, and I love John Goodman. But didn't like the Firefly character. I thought he was kind of not annoying, but just like weirdly stereotypical. But I did like the central plot line of Tiana and what's his name, the prince, and the villain was fucking awesome. Probably one of my favorite Disney villains, especially for the way he goes out, where he just gets sucked into hell by these demons he's been trying to get working for him. It's so good. But yeah, that was a fun watch. And then I took the plunge. I did the Netflix tardy to the party celebration fuckboy thing. And I watched the first 5 episodes of a little show called Neon Genesis Evangelicals.
Oh, the Evangelicals.
Yeah.
Does he get in the robot?
He did get in the robot. And then he got out of the robot. And then he agreed to go back and get back in it. That was the plot of the first 5 episodes. We're done. It was really interesting watching this after having it built up in my mind for so long, because Evangelion is one of those so just like synonymous, like it's just always there in anime culture shows that like I kind of always felt like, yeah, I know what Evangelion is. I know how that works. That's a robot show that people like, and it's got some cute girls. And there's probably overtones of mental issues, whatever. And then I watched it, and I was really shocked by just how, like, down-tempo and slow and quiet it can be, and then how it, like, will just suddenly explode at certain points. It was... I've seen in an anime in a long time.
Just on the topic of Evangelion, I recently watched a YouTube video of a person showing that you can live an entire day of your life and everything you touch and do can be related to Evangelion.
Yeah, it's very much a show just about how humans work and how things can go wrong, and sort of connectivity and understanding of social cues and things like that. Like, I both get and don't get why it's so hotly debated whether or not Shinji is autistic, because I totally see him as autistic, but I also understand this comes from a time before our understanding of autism was anything like what it currently is, and it was probably, as you explained to me in my Discord chat, it's probably something more along the lines of Ono was just trying to explain how he felt as an otaku at that time, and it just so happens to be incredibly similar to the autistic experience, and also he might be autistic, but nobody really knows.
Yeah. But no, the video was talking about how there's so much Evangelion merch that there's Evangelion toothpaste, there's Evangelion toothbrushes, Evangelion towels, Evangelion silverware, Evangelion clothes, Evangelion watches and rings.
There's even Robin Williams movies featuring Evangelion.
Yeah, like there's Evangelion tool belts. Like,
man, that sounds like a shitty indie wrestling character. Just the guy who wears Evangelion shit. But yeah, it's pretty interesting, and I'll definitely watch more of it at some point. I just don't know when, because it definitely does strike me as like you kind of need to be in a proper space for it, because otherwise you're kind of just going to be going in like, yeah, I'm going to watch that popular classic anime Evangelion. Let's do it. And then the show's kind of like, hold up there, buddy. Why don't you sit down? Okay. Get a blanket. Get a blanket, buddy. Put the blanket on you. All right. Are you comfortable? Yeah. Yeah, I am comfortable. That's good. It's good that you're comfortable. Now, Here's a bunch of fucking screaming and mental trauma. Get fucked.
Yeah, I'll stick to Gundam for right now.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing. But after that, I went and watched the first 11 episodes of the new Netflix cartoon 12 Forever, which I immensely enjoyed. This is a really great show that I'm surprised isn't being talked about more, because it's, as you pointed out to me, it's based off of a Cartoon Network short that came out a while ago that Netflix just really liked, and so they paid to have it turned into a show. And it's 15-minute episodes with a half-hour-long pilot, and it's about these two friends, Reggie, and I can't remember the guy's name, because the main girl is named Regina, but everybody just calls her Reggie. And it's something with an M that the main guy is called. I keep wanting to call him Marco, because that's the name of the main guy from fucking
Star.
Yeah, but that's not his name. I know it's not Marco, but that's the only
It's
M
Polo.
name that's yes. We'll call him Polo. But they're like there are a couple goofy kids living in this kind of podunk town, and it's the middle of winter. But they have these magic keys that let them enter into another world called Endless Island. It's not Party Island like it was in the pilot. It's called Endless Island here. And it's just this weird, wacky, kind of Adventure Time-esque world with a bunch of weird creations straight from their imagination. And this thing really kind of reminded me of a lot of shows I grew up with. It reminded me of Cyber Chase with the Another World aspect, and the character designs especially very Cyber Chase-esque, I would say. And it also kind of gets that from Dragon Tales, another PBS show. If you remember, like, the way they would enter, they had to say like a specific sort of poem to enter the Dragon Tales world. And they have that here, except they only do it in the pilot because for 15 minutes is too short to have that extended traveling to Endless Island sequence in every episode. And Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends has kind of like that similar feel of these off-the-wall character designs that are kind of meant to be pulled from the insane imagination of a child sort of thing, except the difference here is they don't just appear on Endless. The way Reggie creates citizens of Endless Island is she'll have like a sculpture or a toy of them in the real world, because she's like a young artist. She's really into making just weird shit out of nothing. And then she'll bring them to Endless Island and she'll bury them in the island sand, and then they explode out of sand as a living, breathing creature. Like, that's kind of the plot of the pilot, is she has a bunch of toys from when she's younger that have just been sitting in her closet, and her mom's like, we're going to have a yard sale. I'm going to sell all these. And she's like, don't fucking sell those. Those are my toys. I love those. You never play with those. What are you going to do with them? Taking them to Endless and making them real people. And it kind of goes along that lines. There's another kid that shows up later. There's a little black girl named Esther. And they all have their own powers. Like, Reggie is... Oh god, I completely forgot what Reggie's powers are. But on the island, they all have their own powers. I know guy whose name starts with an M, he can transmogrify himself into anything. And Esther, her powers are that she has like this energy sort of skateboard that she can fly on, as well as she can create energy whips.
So they basically took what the main character did in the little pilot short and just split it off into separate characters.
Yeah. And there's a villain that does show up in like the second or third episode called the Butt Witch, which is really interesting because it's where this sort of like undertone of the series of hinting that maybe Endless isn't Reggie's creation. Maybe it's always been there and it's got its own kind of thing going on. Because the way the Butt Witch shows up is Reggie is given a bunch of like books on puberty by her mom, and her mom does the classic cartoon parent thing of, I don't want to discuss puberty with you, but you have to know about it. So here's all these books, and just come and ask me if you have questions, but please don't have questions. And then Reggie is like showing them to the guy character and is like, this is fucking weird and stupid. I don't want to read these. And then he actually starts reading them and he's like, oh, this is interesting. I'm learning things. And she's like, fuck learning. I don't want these. And she takes them to a volcano on Endless, throws them in the volcano, and then after they sink into the lava, the butt witch emerges. So it's kind of implied that the butt witch is the lava mixing with these books to create a being. But then the butt witch immediately starts going, oh, it's so good to be back on Endless Island. It's been so long, and I can't wait to see what's become of my wonderful adult wonderland. And then sees all the like weird kitty creation shit that Reggie has done and is like, what the fuck happened to this place? Who did this? And then she finds out about Reggie and the guy and is like, oh, I'm going to kill these kids. And that kind of becomes their back and forth for the rest of the series. So it's kind of unclear whether throwing those books into the lava created the butt witch or summoned the butt witch. I wonder if they're ever actually going to definitively explain that, or it's just going to be like the Mushroom War in Adventure Time, where it's like, yeah, there was a nuclear apocalypse, but we don't really talk about it because it was a long time ago. So yeah, it's a really interesting, fun show. I like it a lot, especially because it's very clearly for kids. It's not like a cartoon that is obviously targeted at kids, but adults can enjoy. It's very much a for kids show. Like, I keep waiting for a romance subplot to emerge between Reggie and the main guy, and it just hasn't. There's been absolutely no hinting or anything. I feel like the only reason I'm waiting for it is because modern cartoons have taught me to expect that. But no, they're just friends and they hang out and it's cool. And I really like that. It was super refreshing. Also, the theme song's pretty good. So I'd recommend it. Couple quick things to touch on real quick before I'm done. I watched The Future is Wild because you recommended that a long time ago, and I only just now got to it in my Watch Later playlist on YouTube. It's good. I liked it.
Yeah. Animals.
And then I rewatched Spider-Verse and Endgame on those Netflix. And my opinion is pretty much the same as it was after the theater. Spider-Verse, really good. Great animated film. Would highly recommend it to fans of both Spider-Man and animation. Endgame, kind of choppy in spots. Not the best it could have been, but definitely the best they could give us, given the circumstances. And I like it. Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris, what have you been reading?
Hi, I've been reading. I read a comic that was digitally released called the Tom Scott is Sad Cycle.
Okay.
It was a comic written by Tom Scott about his depression.
Oh, okay. I thought that title made it sound like a Tom Scott parody for a second there.
No, like, boop. I'm sending you the Imgur link. Yeah. It's partially just because I saw some Tom Scott videos up and about. I watched a couple of them and I was like, yeah. Tom Scott's a cool dude.
Yeah. I used to follow his content pretty regularly. I remember liking his stuff a lot and just feeling like he was a guy who had a lot of potential, but he needed to get his shit together before he could fully reach it. And this is probably exactly about that.
Yeah, kind of. It's very much about his depression and the cycle of self-destruction that he feels like he's on and is on. And also dealing with the death of his real life friend, who was the creator of Ed's World. So there's it's processing a lot of shit for him in this comic, which is interesting. And really, it's a good comic. It's a sad comic, but it's a good comic. I read the first issue of Arrow, which is one part of Marvel's foray into more foreign markets. Basically, they helped produce a webtoon in Korea. It was an Asian country, I can't remember, and it was doing pretty good over there. So they went, "Hey, let's just turn it into an American comic as well." So that's what this is. It's in Shanghai, and maybe Shanghai, it's China, maybe. But the art style for the main story is super anime, which is weird reading in an American comic. It's interesting. Let's see. I started reading Hickman's new X-Men stuff, House of M and Powers of X, House of X and Powers of X. And they are doing a lot of really cool, interesting things. It's making me really hype about the X-Men. Like, they have basically the mutants have finally all together just collectively agreed, fuck it, let's just make our own country and get away from all this bullshit. They've made their own written alphabet that every mutant learns as soon as they step foot on that country. And it's really kind of cool. Like, Magneto's working together with everybody, and there's a really a cool moment to kind of really get across how everybody's kind of treating it. Is like Sabretooth and Mystique are doing a heist, and they get stopped by the Fantastic Four. Mystique and the Toad get away, but Sabretooth gets caught, and so the Fantastic Four are about to take him in. But who would appear but Cyclops? And you think, oh no, what's going to happen here? And Cyclops goes, hey, it's you guys. It's been a while. Ben, I heard you got married. Mazel tov. And it's like, oh, hey, how you doing, Cyclops? Oh, we've been doing pretty good. But here's the thing. Technically, Sabretooth is a citizen of our country now, so I'll bring him in and we'll deal with him. And the Fantastic Four are like, no. And Cyclops basically goes like, it'd probably be a good idea if you did. And they're like, no, we'll take care of it. And it's like, all right.
So basically, continuing the ever-going saga of Cyclops has the right ideas about how mutant kind should work, and all the human superheroes are being a bunch of dumb assholes to him.
Yeah. But now all the mutants are agreeing with him as well. So it's a lot less head on the wall because you know the whole Cyclops was right. How that whole thing got started, right? The whole storyline reason behind it.
I'm trying to remember, but I'm not sure.
It was the Terrigen Cloud.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Basically, for people who don't know, when Marvel was trying to hype up the Inhumans to kind of be the replacement for mutants, the way they got around the fact that an Inhuman has to be hit with Terrigen Mist to become a full Inhuman was they released a giant cloud of Terrigen Mist that just ran around the world. Here's the thing, though, that cloud is poison to mutants and would kill mutants that were in there for a long period of time. And Cyclops was going like, hey, maybe can we disperse this cloud and get rid of it because it's killing people? And humans were like, fuck you, it's religious. And it's like, but it's killing people. Yeah, but if they could leave before it gets to them, it's like that they shouldn't have to do that. It's killing people. And everybody started treating Cyclops as a villain, and he's like, no, Cyclops is right.
Yeah, and then there was Avengers versus X-Men, aka the Phoenix Force is doing some shit, and Cyclops knows how to fix it, but the Avengers want to stick their noses into it and then fight.
Yeah, but hey, now it's shown that Cyclops is like right and correct in his own series, and it's refreshing. And Magneto's there, and he's being a good dude, and he's basically just throwing his Magneto dick for the betterment of everyone, and not just his idea of what would be the betterment for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Also, they retconned something.
Oh?
Okay, you know the character Moira Taggart?
Yeah.
How she's been a mainstay of the X-Men series for a long time, but she's been a human the whole time?
Mm-hmm.
She's not human.
She's a mutie.
She's a mutant with the power of reincarnation.
Oh.
Every time she dies, her current mind gets transported back to being a fetus, and she grows up from that point on all over again, and she can make changes and choices.
Basically trying to make an explanation for the thing that's with every X-Men character of they die and come back to life constantly, even more so than regular comic book characters.
Yeah, and in this latest issue, they show a bunch of the different alternate realities she made. Like, oh, she went to see Charles like 5 years earlier. Things still go shit, and she teams up with Apocalypse once because she was just trying to do anything in her power to like make things better, and things still always go to shit because she realizes it's not just the Trasks making the Sentinels. She comes to the idea that AI isn't an invention, it's like fire. It's always going to happen. It just, all she can change is who gets burned first. So the Sentinels are now a constant. The Sentinels are just going to happen every time. And it's just mitigating that. It's just trying to fight that. It's now kind of the X-Men standard, which really explains like every X-Men thing, because the Sentinels always appear, and if you treat it like, oh no, it's just an inevitability that AI would eventually get to that point because humanity is doing things, it creates a cool dynamic that AI is the technological equivalent to the genetic mutant.
Yeah, it's a really interesting explanation that kind of helps make way for the mutants are persecuted storyline that always crops up in X-Men comics, no matter how sort of stupid it can seem to compared to pretty much everything else going on in the Marvel universe.
Yeah. So they're really setting up a lot of interesting things. I am hyped for it. I also read Spider-Man Renew Your Vows.
Okay. Is this the miniseries?
I read the miniseries and the 23 issues that they did later on.
Okay, because I know there was a miniseries and then there was an ongoing, but I didn't know if the ongoing was still ongoing. You know where I'm going?
I think the ongoing stopped because of Spider-Geddon, and they may or may not want to start it up again. I don't know. But essentially, this is a world where the Mephisto bullshit never happened because, surprise upon surprises, the adults acted like adults and Civil War never happened.
Hey.
So Spider-Man never had to do all that bullshit. But here's the thing. Some fucky shit happened later on where basically he's Spider-Man and he has a kid with Mary Jane. After the first kid, that was a miscarriage. A person took the baby away and the storyline never got picked back up. But basically, Spider-Man has a kid. All of a sudden, this big bad villain comes in and goes like, "Hey, I'm just going to kill everybody. And he kills everybody and puts them in pods to absorb their power and treat them like batteries, because this was done at the time when Secret Wars was about to happen. And 616 Dr. Doom was combining all the universes. So he was doing this to fight Doom and protect his universe. But nobody knew that. But Secret Wars happens and then didn't happen. And so everything's kind of back where it was. And now Spider-Man's the only hero left in a world that is now devoid of their dictator. So he's trying to be Spider-Man and do all this kind of stuff. His daughter's going like, I got spider powers. I want to be a hero. This will be dope. Come on, let me do it, Dad. And they're like, okay, but wear a helmet. And they do all this kind of stuff. There's a bunch of cool scenes where like they go to the X Mansion, because the X-Men were the like some of the only heroes not captured by the dude. So like they're pulling a lot of duty trying to help the world. And basically in this world, Jean Grey and Cyclops stay away from each other. They don't get back together. And Jean Grey marries Wolverine and they have a kid.
Oh, damn.
So Wolverine, it's still Wolverine going bub and drinking beer and all that stuff, but he's happy and fulfilled. And it's like, wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's the happiest news I've gotten in a long time.
Oh man, and it's adorable because basically the X-Men call up Spider-Man and go like, hey, we have an offer. Even though she's not a mutant, she has powers. Would you like to enroll her here at Xavier's Institute for Gifted Youngsters in order for her to have a more responsible environment for her powers? And eventually they go like, no, we'd rather her grow up, rather her be in an environment where she can be, where she doesn't have to focus on her powers, that kind of thing. But because of that, they become really good friends, and Wolverine trains her in the danger room. And Peter Parker watches all the time, but whenever she's getting really in trouble, Peter Parker just has to jump in and be a dad and protect her. And Wolverine goes like, hey, Spidey, this training would be a lot better for her if you didn't jump in the second she gets into some trouble. And it's like, oh, dads are being worrywarts. And Peter Parker and Mary Jane's daughter babysits Wolverine's kid, and it's adorable, and it's so good. It's what Spider-Man should have been in the 2000s, not what it was.
Yeah, that sounds really good. I like how there's this trend now of just doing Spider-Man books in various ways that people would have preferred Spider-Man would have gone, as opposed to the way it did go in the 2000s. Like, there's Spider-Man Life Story. We have Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, it's almost as if Joe Quesada's whole idea that Spider-Man's not interesting if he's married was bullshit.
Yeah.
Fuck one more day.
Fuck one more day. So what else did you read?
That's about it for my reading beat. I read a lot more comics.
Well, I read a couple things. I read Transformers Robots in Disguise Volume 2, which is the second volume of the lesser-known Phase 2 IDW Transformers series. But it's the one I actually like better because it takes place in a post-war Cybertron, and it's all about these characters who have been at war with one another for centuries, trying to figure out how to build a government. And I like it a whole lot, because you got President Bumblebee alongside Ironhide, who's kind of his security, chief of police guy, and Prowl, who's like the organized office, I make sure all our records are filed correctly guy, and Wheeljack, who's just there for shits and giggles. He just helps out where he can. And then you have Starscream, who keeps coming in and going like, hey, when are you going to let Decepticons do some stuff? War's over now. You got to let Decepticons help out a little bit, Autobots. And this guy, Metalhawk, who is in a faction called Nails, which is like a big acronym that basically stands for robots, Cybertronians that did not pick a side during the war and instead just fucked off until it was over. And he's like, when are you going to hold some elections? The Autobots can't just be in charge. That's no different than the way it was before the war. We need to have elections so we can pick like a few Autobots, a few Decepticons, and a few of my guys to be in charge. And Bumblebee's like, I'm just trying to make shit work. Can you please leave me alone for a few minutes? It's like, I really like this stressed out, like, mid-30s office worker Bumblebee. It's great. And there's some stuff that happens. Some adventures are going around. Some old cons that won't let the war go are showing up occasionally. And there's an interesting subplot where Ironhide goes off into, like, the wilds outside Iacon with the Dinobots, and they're looking for the aerial bots who went off to do some scouting and haven't come back yet. And something's going on out in the wilds that's made the aerial bots and now the Dinobots go feral, and they're hunting Ironhide, and he's having to figure out how the fuck to fix them and stop whatever's going on. And it's good. It's fun. I like it. It's not exactly the most well put together collection of stories because there's kind of something different going on in each issue of this. But it's kind of like just an interesting snapshot of what this period of IDW Transformers history was, and I would recommend it. But that's also speaking as somebody who's very tardy to the party on IDW Transformers and only like kind of grabs a trade here and there nowadays. Like my knowledge of IDW Transformers is the first 5 or so issues of the current ongoing. Till All Are One, volumes 1 and 2, both Windblade miniseries. I own the first 2 trades of Robots in Disguise now, the first trade of Mortem Meets the Eye, and I've read Death of Optimus Prime. Haven't checked out any Phase 1 stuff yet. So, you know, I understand how it works, but I don't have like a real deep knowledge of IDW Transformers. This was good, though.
Yeah.
And then I read A Perfect Blood, which is the 10th book in the Hollow series, getting real close to the end now. And this one is pretty good. I like how it's very much, it is a case of the week book, but it's also got some interesting world building going on. And there's a lot of neat moments where we just are reminded, like, some of these characters have come a really long way. Like this character who had a very abusive childhood is now kind of in a happy, stable relationship. This one character who was kind of an old man, but then was given a new lease on life is kind of settling back into his role as a patriarch. And this other character who was like struggling to keep his race alive is now a happy father of 2. And this, his wife is a character who was originally a slave of a demon and was freed by the main character, and literally has a scene in the book where she's talking to the main character and is like, I am eternally grateful to you because being a mother has made me the happiest I've ever been. And I've been alive for like a couple thousand years now, thanks to being in the demon world and not being able to age. So it's like a lot of cool stuff like that. I also really enjoyed, like, they've done a lot of hinting up to this point that there's kind of some tension between humans and paranormal creatures, but never outright talked about it until this book, where this old sort of racist hate group from the time when magical creatures made themselves known to humans, called HAPA, Humans Against Paranormals, comes out of hiding and starts causing some trouble again, and our main character has to kind of take them down. And then we also find out that, like, oh yeah, not only did they like resurge and come out of hiding, they've always been there. There's Happa infested in every part of the human government, and there's this like government within the government, shady sort of black ops organization that's trying to take them all out. And we encounter that organization at the end of the book, and the main character is like, well, shit, this is a thing I'm going to have to deal with in the next book. And that was very fun. I enjoyed it a whole lot. I like the series so far, but I definitely think the last 2 or 3 books, because that's how many I have left, is definitely going to determine whether I would overall recommend this to people or not. But yeah, I like this one quite a bit. So Chris, what you been playing with this week?
Well, I've been playing some more Chrono Trigger. Not a ton, but a little bit. But that's not the major thing I've been playing. Because I've fallen into gacha hell, and I've been playing Gunpla Battle, Gunpla World, whatever. What is it? Hold on. Let me get the actual name of this thing that I have spent way too much time on. And I probably will spend more time on it because it's fun. Gundam Battle Gunpla Warfare. Essentially, you have a little tiny Gunpla model kit, and you battle them. There's a little bit of a story, and you spend points to get more Gundam parts, and you can make a bunch of ridiculous things, or you make some badass looking shit, and you basically fight in an action combat game where you can shoot and swipe at people with your sword and everything.
Neat.
Yeah. And I got my Gundam dude pretty well stocked, pretty well done, pretty cool. And every time you complete a set of Gundam in terms of like parts, you get their like box art for the Gundam model kit, and you get their color scheme, and you get a bunch of cool stuff. Like this is I'm sending a picture to Vac right now. This is my current layout for my Gundam dude. It's sending. In just a second. But and it's still really early days, so they only just added the arena. They only just added events.
Oh wow, that's a pretty good color scheme you got going on there. Not one I'd ever expect, but it works nicely. And also, far away, that rendering looks really good.
Oh yeah, no, up close the textures are kind of puke. Like they aren't the greatest.
But I'm looking at that as a small section in a Discord chat that isn't taking up one of my monitors entirely. So it looks decent.
Yeah, but the basic idea is the color scheme. The main body is a Gelgog, which is the type of Zaku. Or like one of those kind of like the bad guy robots. They're always usually green. My shield is based off of a GM2. My gun is the color scheme of Gundam Wing because his guns are black with an accent of yellow, which matches the yellow on his knees.
Huh.
And the backpack, I have a giant red bazooka because I think that having a giant red bazooka complements the green color scheme.
I don't entirely agree, but I can see it.
It's a nice contrast because it's a giant fuck off cannon, and it's like it pops a little bit more because it's a green Gundam. So it creates an imposing atmosphere that he is so badass. He has a giant red cannon.
Yeah.
And I got all the parts for the RX-78 too. I got all the parts for the Zaku to Gundam Wing. It's really fun. It's really cool. I've seen a good number of complaints about the gacha mechanics, how they aren't. They basically, they're mechanics that have kind of been phased out like a good couple of years ago. As people who made these kind of games realize, oh wait, more people play these games if we were nicer with it instead of like nickel and diming, this is very much is. Though I'm kind of a cheapskate and I save a lot of my shit, so it's not as bad for me, I guess. but like it's fun. I really enjoy it, but it probably helps that I'm really getting into Gundam at the same time I'm playing this. So yeah, that's what I've been playing.
Neat. I did get a couple figures open this week. I opened the DC Direct, the new 52 Supergirl figure, which is one I was keeping in box for a long time, basically because I bought it because I needed it for the collection, but I do actually like that run. But it is a figure. It is one of the few times I would actually describe an action figure as a butterface, because it's a great sculpt, but they applied like way too much makeup, way too much paint on the face, trying to get across that she has eyeshadow, and it just looks like her face is covered in dirt, and it's really ugly. But getting it out of the package is a pretty solid figure, decent articulation for DC Direct at that time. I remember when I first got it, because I hadn't read a lot of New 52 Supergirl beyond the first 2 arcs. I was like, it's really weird that she just comes with a piece of kryptonite. I mean, like, isn't that like an accessory you give to like a Lex Luthor or something? Why would you give that to her? Why not like an effects part to show her heat vision or something? But if you actually read on in New 52 Supergirl, she has this whole thing where she gets like kryptonite cancer and has to find a cure for it and whatnot, and it becomes a weirdly nice character touch for her to have that as an accessory. So, nice little figure. What wasn't a nice little figure was I got Transformers War for Cybertron Siege Battlemaster Fire Drive, which is one of their not Target Master things. And
Battlemaster. Yeah.
The little guys who turn into guns. But this is the first one that isn't named after an existing Target Master and was just there to get the mold out there, even though the mold already existed because it had been made for the Japanese Transformers Legends line during Titan's Return. But here's the thing. Hasbro changed the mold significantly to the point where it is crap now, because I've got 2 of those Legends figures. I have Cup and Windblade, and they both come with Target Masters. And those Target Masters are pretty cool. They're pretty solid. All the things that make those Target Masters like nice little improvements on the classic design ain't here. The Japanese ones have knee joints. The knee joints have been taken out. Just a fused one leg piece on a ball joint. The Japanese ones had a like linked waist and head joint. So you could turn the head and the waist, and they kind of turned in tandem. And that was part of the transformation. Here they gutted that out, so the head is just part of like basically the same component as the torso now. And the waist has this weird joint in it that makes it bend further forward for the transformation, even though you didn't need that there because it already transformed fine when there was a knee joint and a waist joint. Like, it's sacrificing these joints ostensibly to make a more solid transformation, but it kind of ruins the robot mode. It takes it from a neat little guy to kind of just a statue of a neat little guy. Like, I really see why they put effects parts in these beyond the whole motif of the line, because these things would not sell if they did not come with effects parts.
Huh. Weird.
Cool effects parts, though. Fire Drive is the one that comes with the, like, 2 sort of muzzle flash, laser blast, the red puffs, basically. So, those are neat. And then I played a little more of the War for Cybertron video game, the first level of the Autobot campaign, which was a good bit longer than I expected, actually. Felt like 2 levels of the Decepticon campaign in length. And was good fun. It's Optimus and Bumblebee meeting for the first time before Optimus has Prime attached to the end of his name, but he's not called Orion Pax, he's just called Optimus for whatever reason.
He's Optimus Peck.
Yes. and him and Bumblebee and Ratchet have to go do a thing, so some like anti-aircraft guns can activate, and they encounter some Dark Energon and do some
Dark
stuff.
Dark
Energon. And they do some stuff, and it's cool, but I think I would have enjoyed this level a lot more if I was playing as any other character but Optimus, because like your initial thing is like, oh, I'm playing for the campaign, and in almost every level I can play as Optimus or Megatron, depending on if it's the Autobot or Decepticon campaign. So obviously I'm always going to pick Optimus and Megatron. With Megatron, that worked out pretty well, because he handles decently, and you can always swap out for different weapons. There's always a point in a level where there will be some weapons lying around, and you can pick them up if you don't like the standard weapon the character comes with. Optimus has the weapon swap thing, but he handles terribly. Optimus is definitely the tank of the Autobots, which, okay, I get it. He's the big daddy. You want to give him that kind of handling, but good lord, was that not fun to play in a game where you got to kind of run around and shoot guys, and you can't just run into a huge crowd of robots or you'll get killed instantly. So probably not going to play as Optimus again anytime soon, but other than that, it was a neat level. I definitely liked how, because you're not just running, you're invading this place and killing everybody, you're kind of running through and rescuing bots, so you get to see like other Autobots hanging around, like, fighting a good fight. Made Cybertron feel a lot more populated than the Decepticon levels did.
That's weird, because when I watched my friend play this like forever ago, he always played Optimus. But he also played it on Xbox 360.
That's fair. And I am playing with an Xbox controller, but I'm playing it on Steam, so there might be differences in the game there, or maybe your friend just likes likes a more tanky character.
Yeah, who knows?
But that's everything I've been playing this week, and if I'm not mistaken, that's the end of the show. So, Chris, why don't you tell everybody who you are and where they can find your shit?
My name is Chris, Boingo Writer Gaston. You can find me on YouTube. I do video editorials. You can find me on Twitter. I am Boingo_Gaston. I am Boingo_Writer. You can find me on Instagram at Boingo_Writer. And you can go onto my Discord server. The link to that is in the Skippy Tone.
Nice. I am Simeon the Vacuuminator Scott. I am a YouTube boy, but my YouTube channel is currently in the middle of reruns because I'm consolidating all my channels down into one. Because that's better for the almighty algorithm. But if you want to go ahead and check me out, it's youtube.com/thevacuuminator. Don't really know what direction my channel is going to take once it comes back from reruns, but we'll see. Should be interesting. If you want to keep up with me and what I'm doing as I'm doing it, go and follow me on Twitter at thevacuuminator or on Instagram at thevacuuminator. And hey, if you want to keep up with this podcast and what we're doing with it, you can go ahead and hit that little subscribe button, ring the bell to get notifications. If you want to listen to the show on the go, we got a Google Drive folder filled with MP3s of every episode, linked down in the video description. You can follow us on Twitter at the Modular Media for updates on the show as we get them. And you can subscribe to our subreddit, r/Modular Media. But that is going to do it for this episode of Analytical Fanboys. And next time, we will be discussing the first volume of Saga by Brian K. Vaughan.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Probably my favorite indie comic. And, hey, good time to talk about it now because it's in the middle of a hiatus. So we can kind of, like, make people remember that it's a thing that exists. So that should be interesting. Let me actually... I'm going to pop over to my shelf real quick and check how many issues the first volume is so our listeners will know what to read. Collecting issues 1 through 6. So
all right.
That is what we will be discussing next week. And until then, we will see you all up in the lands of pigs and definitely not fascists.
I'm Doug Dimmadome. Welcome to the Dimcell Duggadome.
Okay.